the bells. These are not bells. These are glasses.
These are very not clinky glasses.
Well, that's because they're full, and I'll drink to that.
Yes.
Game of Thrones spoilers ahead.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah. So from here on out, all of the sensor beeps are going to be the surrender bells.
I like that.
Just so you guys
really
know.
We
like
have a new
that.
bell sound. It's just as shameful. We'll get to
Exactly.
that.
Dong.
Okay.
Can we do our normal yay or nay?
Yes. Nay.
Shawn?
All right, I will start. My summary of the episode. That was awesome. I think that will probably be within the top 5, if not top 3 episodes of the entire series. I think that the characters that went off in this episode, I think they went out in a way that fitted them. And I cannot wait to see what happens next episode. And I'm really glad that the things that have been foreshadowed for the entire season, well, the one big thing that wasn't John's birth, the other thing has been finally put in like the spotlight that we all knew was coming.
Are we talking about Clegane Bowl?
No, but that was also f***ing awesome. Get f***ing hype.
We're talking about Daenerys. I assume.
No.
Yeah.
That was not
All right.
foreshadowed enough.
So tell me all how much you hated it and how the worst writing in the world was and all that.
Well,
I pointed out earlier that I think Arturo's plan was that he would be a sort of mediator, like between the good and the bad, but that has not happened. He's definitely harsher on it than I think I am. I didn't like it. We'll get into why.
I want to say that I think I like the dynamic because I think we all like and dislike different things about the show.
We have a vast number of things covered for sure. Yeah.
All right, your guys' opinions.
Generally, Clegane Bowl, I enjoyed. I think that was really good. I like how he kills him. I thought that was fitting. Everything else, I like Kyvern's death as well. I thought that was hilarious.
Trying to stop Clegane Bowl, that's what fucking happened.
No, like that was
not stop the hype.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Oh, you're gonna need a lot of bells. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I am thinking like there.
You should just have a clip of them like saying, "Ring the bells, ring the bells."
I think you had a really long curse word. I might just have to do that. Put that in there. Or were you done?
Pretty much. I mean, we'll get into specifics as to why, but I'm not a positive on this one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty negative on it as well. What I did like though was like how it was shot. It was really cool. Like it's visually really stunning. Mm-hmm. I think it was a great medium for bad writing. That's really all it was for me. But okay.
Oh, I was going to mention to you guys beforehand, but there's something that I read in the past week before the episode came out that kind of changed the way that I was viewing, or something that a piece of information that I didn't know about the ending of the series that I was not aware. That kind of changed the way that I kind of looked at it. But apparently, before the season happened, and before they started finalizing things, George R. R. Martin and D&D, the writers, met, and they apparently went back over, and George R. R. Martin went specifically with like each character for them, like how it should end and whatnot. So I was not aware of that beforehand. I thought that like that he was just painted them a broad picture a few years ago, and that like they're basing off of this. But apparently, like this is pretty much more or less what we're gonna get in the books.
Do you think that's realistic though? Like,
absolutely.
I think it would make sense for him to want to differentiate the two.
I think that most of the things that we've seen, like a lot of these major character plots, I think they're pretty exact to what we're going to, and not always, not all of them. I think some of them will be a little different. But I think for the most part that the deaths are going to be the same in the book. So, I will say that I think Qyburn is going to get a different death in the book, but he deserves the death he got on this show.
Let me add something to that though, because so HBO did offer Dumb and Dumber. That's what we're going to call them.
D&D.
Dumb and Dumber.
D&D.
All right.
Let's at least be polite.
All right, I'll be polite for you, Shawn. But they offered them 2 full seasons for 7 and 8, and they declined them.
Yeah, that is something that I think was a mistake.
Absolutely, because we've complained about the pacing and. But what? Go ahead.
I understand exactly why they did it, because the full episode or the full seasons of the previous couple seasons, they were easy to fill with 10 episodes, because the parts that they had 10 episodes for wasn't too far from the books, from the end of where the books are currently. Okay. And the further they went, the less meat they have. So they're starting, they have at this point only bones, kind of, until the very end, which George R. R. Martin has given them. So I think the fact that for the first 5.5 seasons, the fact that they have to condense material and cut material, I think that's what kind of gave the show a slower and more fulfilling pacing that it had within the first 5.5 seasons. Okay. And I think that they have done the best with what they've had.
And see, sorry, Ron.
No, that just what they have and what they were given, and that includes both what they can fit into the show and what source material they are given.
And see, I don't necessarily if it turns out that this is the case, right, and that all the characters basically meet the same fates as they are right now, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think that the problem is that I think that some of these character arc completions don't feel natural because they are happening so fast and they feel unjustified. So, people had that problem with Arya. People are having that problem with Dany. And obviously they were building Dany up to do what she did. But I feel like it happened too fast, and her characters seemed too conflicted about it for her to just suddenly totally turn around. And so I think that's why people are feeling that these character moments have been unearned, is because of all of this substance that is lacking. So I think if if these character arc completions were to be reached in a more substantial way, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that.
I think that could have been better achieved with longer spanning episodes. Even filled with, I am going to complain about the writing, because filled with better writing that properly exposed the problems that these characters were going to face and the kind of the growth they were going to undergo. And then saw it out and just gave us a satisfying ending. Because for example, I saw this on the subreddit. I think it was Free Folk. Someone posted a photo of Walter White, and they said, "This is the proper way to make a character turn evil," right? And that was it. And that's just that character went from good to evil over the course of 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case for Dany at all. At least I don't think.
It was always there, though. I mean, I think. Do we want to talk about the overarching stuff after we go through the episode or before? Because I think we should. I think we should dissect the episode and then start talking about these kind of things.
I think the problem is that the major point of contention is very obvious, and that's at the end of the episode. But it's up to you guys.
Well, let's go through the episode bit by bit. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So we start off in the in Varys's darkened halls, where he's writing his treasonous letter telling somebody that Jon Snow is Aegon Targaryen, the true.
Now, see, letter or letters. The smart thing would have been letters, because he could have sent them out to all the people in the kingdom that he could have. What probably happened is one letter that he didn't get to finish, and then that he had to burn. Well, what do you think? I mean, that's my take.
I think it is implied that he's sending a bunch of letters.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got. Like he was sending multiples, and then he was interrupted by this little one of his little birds, his little spiders.
That's what I thought too, but I have less faith in the writing, and I think it was the one. We'll have to see, because I think everything that I've been negative on or had negative thoughts on is kind of like, for example, Jamie. Remember that was a point of like we were all questioning, like, why did Jamie leaving Brienne, like what was that for? And I was very pessimistic about it and thought they totally like messed up his character by him actually leaving. And they did. And what I'm saying is the bad things that I've come to expect have actually been happening.
But I think that is exactly what his character would do. I think that is proving his character arc right, if anything.
Have you seen the comment about it not being an arc, but rather a circle?
No, I've not seen that. I don't. Well, that's the thing. I think we're thinking in terms of arcs when we shouldn't be thinking in terms of arcs, but I think we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, because to me that makes me feel like 8 years were wasted if he just ends back up at the beginning, but we'll get into that. So I do think that he was just writing the one letter, which is unfortunate if that is the case. But that kid, I mean, he was obviously trying to poison Dany.
Yeah, I think that's what, and I didn't get that until I think we probably I didn't get it until I saw the post. I think it was on Free Folk or something like that that they might have been like trying to poison Dany, and like I rewatched it earlier today. I was like, yeah, that could have been like, she's not eating, we'll try again tomorrow. So like
that's what came to mind to me first. Like maybe that's what they were gonna do, is poisoning, and then it was a little bit it was confirmed later on.
Yeah.
You too, Yestin?
Yep.
You good with that?
I actually just mainly drew the conclusion that her dragons weren't eating earlier. Now she's not eating.
I kind of got that.
But I did get the poisoning idea because they're watching her, and so she's worried.
Yeah. Okay, so then Jon Snow arrives.
Yes.
That's the next scene, and Varys wastes no time to go up to him.
Yeah.
Which is that a very Varys thing to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the way that he did it, though.
Absolutely.
I don't think so, because he's supposed to be very smart, and he knows that if he's seen talking to Jon in the way that he was, that might be construed. There should have been sneakier.
And I feel like he should know who Jon is as a person. Like he should know that Jon is not going to like have his back.
But at this point, he's already played his hand. He's already sent out messages, or is planning to send out messages. He's already committed his treason. He thinks he's already dead at this point. At this point, he's trying to talk to Jon, like trying to convince him that, like, listen, if you go for the throne, you will have multiple supporters saying, like, hey, you are the right one for this. And I think that we've all seen, he's saying this to Jon, that, like, we've all kind of seen that the Daenerys, like we know she wants good intentions, but she's always been very sketchy about how she wants to achieve them.
You're saying that he was ready to die, Varys.
Yeah.
But that to me is not who Varys is at all, because Varys, from the very beginning, when he talks to Ned in the cellar, he refuses to let him out because he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to be in trouble. He doesn't want to be hurt.
Because he knows he can get out. Because he's in the position of power there. Right now, he's not in the position of power.
Yeah, but he's in a position to move. Like, it's not like he's trapped. He could leave. I mean, clearly he still has power because he has his little birds. He's got a network.
I did think when Tyrion talks to Davos about him smuggling, I thought he was going to try to get Varys out of there.
That was after he had already been burned.
Yeah.
Was it?
It was.
Or maybe it was just the boat that Jamie or that Jon Snow arrived that made me think that. I remember at some point thinking like, oh, Varys might be leaving or something, or like he might try to escape after putting this plan into action.
Yeah.
I agree. To me, it did feel weird that he would just sort of give up so easily, especially considering that his plan hadn't really come to fruition or anything. It seemed like that could have been like he would have handled that in a better, more tactful way.
And like right after that, Tyrion tells Dany about Varys.
Yeah, and I mean, Varys is just telling everyone. Like, he's telling Tyrion, and then he tells Jon, very obviously his intentions. And that does, to me, feel like something that he would have been more secretive about. He didn't need to tell either of them in order to maintain his plan, right? Like, he could have observed Jon a little bit more to see how he would probably react. And again, I think that Varys should have known that Jon would not have reacted well. I think it makes sense that Varys would trust Tyrion, maybe. But I feel like he would have handled the situation better.
In the last episode, you guys were both kind of on board with the Tyrion and Varys thing, and I was not happy about the two of them because they were very obviously conspiring very loudly, and that seemed very out of place. But now, Yestin, you're saying that you're not that you're not rooting for that.
What do you mean?
It just seems like you've turned around from your opinion of Varys last episode.
Like, I mean, I like that they had him and Tyrion talking because it felt like old Game of Thrones, but I do think that given the situation and especially given Tyrion's reaction to it, I think that Varys could have handled it in a better way that would have felt even more Game of Thronesy. But
do you remember the days when Ned who was it? I think it was Ned who talked to somebody very discreetly in a courtyard. Was it Littlefinger that he was talking to in a courtyard?
He talked to Cersei
when he was telling Cersei that he knew that her children were bastards.
Yeah, but he also met somebody else to deliver information, and they were like kind of facing away from each other. Anyway, the point is that that scene that I'm thinking of had like a good amount of secrecy, and the precautions were taken in a way that they weren't here. Where the stakes are arguably higher here.
Again, this feels like something to me that feels rushed. I think that Varys' plan would have made more sense if it was an expanded thing that took place over like an episode or two, and that had more facets to it. Facets?
But it did take place over an episode or two.
Sort of. But there wasn't a lot going on. He sent letters, he told Tyrion, he told Jon, and then he was killed.
I mean, and I'm not even sure what his plan really is. Obviously the goal is to dethrone Daenerys, right? Or to not have her reach the Iron Throne, which, by the way, I guess she does.
It just felt incomplete, I guess.
But, so that's his goal. But, like, what steps did he actually take to do that besides talking to Tyrion about it and possibly writing one or more letters, you know?
Well, we don't know about that yet.
Yeah. I'm just not holding out. He's dead now, so...
Yeah.
But did he actually set anything to motion? We won't find out.
We probably won't know that until next episode.
Yeah.
If anything comes of that or not.
Okay. But I guess what we could take away from is that Melisandre was right about him dying in Westeros.
Yeah. I expected that the second, we saw him this episode, he was dead. And when Daenerys says, if you ever betray me again, I'll burn you or whatever.
To Varys?
Yeah, when she says that last season.
Okay.
When she's questioning his loyalty.
I hadn't remembered that, but I just thought that in the scene where Tyrion tells Dany about Varys, I was like, freaking Tyrion, you suck.
Yeah.
I really hated him that moment.
But it seemed like something he would do.
Would it? I didn't think so.
Absolutely. Because if you remember the scene where he and Varys were talking last episode, it was very clear that they had both picked their sides at that point. Tyrion was on the side of Daenerys because he wanted to give her hope, but Varys, who has seen every tyrant that's ever sat on the Iron Throne within the last living generation, is like, no, this woman's starting to look pretty tyranty.
And of course, ironically, it was Varys that brought Tyrion to her.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And who ended up betraying him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, that was Jorah who brought Tyrion to her originally.
But Varys brought him to Essos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Varys went to Tyrion and said, hey, you should advise this person because I believe that she can. And now he's, they've switched sides.
Mm-hmm. So the scene where Drogon appears out of the black, out of dark. That was beautifully shot.
Yes.
I saw people complaining about that. How is Drogon actually? How is he so still that you can't see him? Whatever. To me, that's super nitpicky.
I know. I'm gonna be nitpicky too.
Oh God.
I just don't like the way that they killed Varys. It doesn't make any sense. Are you telling me he was just eliminated, like he died instantaneously. Like I know that the dragon fire is more than just fire; it's a force. Like
I thought
blowing
it
through
was
stone.
weird. He didn't scream or anything.
Because I could see, it makes like you could shoot him with a full force fire blast, and he would probably just instantaneously die. But those are also huge blasts of fire, and everyone's standing around in a circle. That seemed weird to me, and I think they should have made him suffer. Because I think that would have like showed more of Danny's
I agree with
ruthlessness,
that.
and I think that would have maybe even made it a little bit more tolerable for a lot of people when she did turn. So I thought that was badly done.
During that time, John looks over at Danny like,
Yeah.
What?
And she's just like watching him burn.
yeah. Now, Danny's always had like a ruthless side, and I don't think that her executing people makes her descending into madness any more than any other lord has executed anybody that has wronged them.
I wanted, but sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, but like, there's been multiple multiple instances every season, like where she has to be convinced by her advisors multiple times. Hey, you probably shouldn't go and massacre all these innocents just because they stand in your way.
This was the only time that I felt like she was even considering massacring innocents.
What about the Masters of Marine?
They weren't innocent.
Well, I mean, that's very it's group punishment.
Yeah, but they all collectively put people like as signposts.
I feel like Daenerys has been a person who is like motivated by emotion, but who will recoil at the thought of the unintended consequences of her actions. So like when the slaves come and they say, you crucified my father and he was constantly fighting against the slave trade and blah blah blah, like she seems remorseful about that. I feel like her character has been sort of back and forth between being for the people and also just like taking what she thinks is hers by blood, and so I do agree that is something that they have built up, but I do not like the execution of the finality of that here.
See, it seems that every time she's faced an individual whose suffering she's caused, she finds remorse. But when she finds groups of people that she thinks have wronged her or are in her way or that kind of thing, she becomes like this unstoppable, like uncalculating or like cold calculating monster.
Okay. My problem with that is that, and we're jumping ahead again to Danny, which we don't have to do if you don't want us to.
Go for it.
So, like, I can almost see that, right? But I feel like her actions have never been taking place against people who she specifically thought was innocent, which is what happens in this episode. And the writers say in the episode recap, when she sees the red keep and hears the bells, that's when she sees a symbol of what was taken from her, and she decides to make it personal. And I'm a little unclear about what that actually means.
Yeah, because that implies that it's not like snapping, that it's a decision.
Yeah, and who is she making it personal against? Like the people living in the city? My interpretation was, she's just going to go right up and just burn Cersei. That would be personal. Cersei killed Missandei. Cersei is a representation of what was taken from her. But instead she torches the city. Like that does not seem reasonable to me. And they do not frame it as she has gone mad. They frame it as she has made a decision.
Exactly. And that's been her stepping forward and realizing that she has no power of love, like that this is kind of what they've been trying to show, how Daenerys, where in Essos she was loved by everybody because she was freeing the slaves and she was making everybody's life pretty much better. But here, where she's realizing that she's kind of destroying a lot of lives, whether she likes it or not, lives that both don't care about her and both don't care about Cersei, she kind of just doesn't care either.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of Varys or Tyrion, I forget who, they touched on. They said that Westeros is full of millions of people, most of whom don't care who sits on the Iron Throne.
Exactly.
Because in Westeros, there is no slave trade. It's illegal to trade slaves, to have slaves. I mean, you can have what, like servants or whatever.
Yeah, servants and serfs, but that's like feudalism.
Right. But like if you outright have someone who you call a slave, I guess that's illegal.
Yeah.
And so the people of Westeros aren't exactly in dire need like the people of Essos are, or most of the people of Essos are. So of course they're going to immediately show Dany love and appreciation for getting them out of that bad situation. And so it's kind of like she is trying to conquer a first world country.
Yeah, in the terms of like medieval, like Planetos.
Yeah, medieval quality of life.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're going to be less wanting and less appreciative of her, I think. But this is a good transition into, like you said, Dany has no love in Westeros. And here I put that she has no love except Jon's.
And then next scene.
That is the next scene. No, because he said, I love you to Dany.
Yeah.
And then, Dany is cock-blocked.
All Jon had to do was bang his aunt, and everyone would still be alive.
Yeah, well, I wrote in here that she could have really used Jon's love at the moment, but she literally says that I choose fear. So and just jumping back a little bit, that's also her making the decision, not snapping, right? Now, Jon can't love Dany the way she loves him. Is that because they're related?
I think it's a little bit because they're related and a little bit because he's seeing that she's a little hell-bent on taking power no matter what it costs her or the people around her.
Okay.
And I think that and the fact that she's willing to do that without the system of honor that he's been brought up with, I think that's really causing him some kind of internal turmoil.
Yeah, because that's why I wrote when I saw that scene. And then in the when the writers talk about it, they kind of confirmed that by saying that Jon can't return Dany's affections. So I guess Jon has this love for her that he just it's kind of like in the 50s, if you were gay, maybe you couldn't show that out, or
I'm pretty
be public
sure that's
about
a pretty
it.
bad analogy, but I
think so?
understand where you're coming from.
Okay, well, I thought it made sense, but at least you got it. I think Tyrion keeps beating a dead horse, talking about when he's advising Dany on how to approach King's Landing, how to actually go about taking the city.
Absolutely.
The bells.
He says once the bells are rung, you should stop attacking. Blah,
One
blah, blah.
thing that I think is unarguable is that this writing is so on the nose with the crypt and then the bells. They repeat these things so many times. It's we get it. It's gonna be important.
Oh yes, no, I agree. The crypt is the safest place in Westeros or in Winterfell, and then the bells that's gonna be important later.
Did you see the clip of Peter Dinklage complaining about the crypt stuff?
No. We should link that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dany, when she talks back to Tyrion, I think she's making sense about her being ruthless is being a mercy for future generations. At least I could see where she's coming from, right? Because she says our advantage is mercy, not mercy for the people there now or the soldiers there. I didn't know exactly who she was talking about at the moment, but she says our mercy will be making sure that nobody grows up with tyrants or under the rule of tyrants, no matter what the cost. Right? That's what she was kind of saying. Do you agree? 'Cause you're kind of looking at me like,
well, that I know. I think that's part of the bigger question that this series kind of asks. One of the bigger questions that it asks is, do the deaths of millions now? I mean, it's kind of like the bigger question of do the means or do the ends justify the means? Do the deaths of millions of people in the name of something that's supposed to be great, that's supposed to happen tomorrow, does it justify all the horrors and atrocities that comes with it?
Mm-hmm. And along those lines, I thought that was kind of tied in with the Long Night, how everything that these lords have done it's not justifiable because it doesn't matter in the end, Anyway, I don't have to get into that, but everything that keeps reminding me of the Long Night It's just it's kind of like digging the nail in deeper for me because I wasn't happy that they ended the long night so quickly. But that was just basically it. So I wrote that it seems like her going mad in quotation marks was planned on along. They shouldn't call it going mad at that point. She's just being ruthless, and she just changed who she is, I think. Because going mad implies that it was like a snap reaction.
Yeah, I think it's her. I don't think it's her going mad per se. I think it's realizing that she will never have control over power the way she wants until she has grasp over her current power, which will require her to use fear in her eyes, is what she thinks.
I see.
Like, she thinks that the only way to secure herself right now and to make sure everyone knows that she's the one in charge, not Aegon Targaryen over here, not like Sansa
Cersei.
in the North, not the dead Queen Cersei. It's me here. I'm in charge, and if you don't agree with that, I'm going to burn you like my ancestors did 300 years ago. All right, now can we talk about having a fair and tolerant society kind of thing? Like, and if you don't like, so you're going to burn. Like, if you stand in front of me, you're going to burn.
That's very contradicting.
Yeah.
Of course. Like, she's a hypocrite, but
exactly, but that's kind of been her two sides that have played against her in her entire character.
Yeah. Then after that, Dany mentions that Jaime was caught. Like, what an idiot. And I think we're going to talk about this at length. So here we go. Yeston, your unlikely scenario of Jaime leaving. You said it's so ridiculous that they won't do it. Jaime did not leave Brienne because he's going back to Cersei. But he did.
I know.
And I don't think your predictions hold any weight at this point.
I know, but what if one of them is just totally right? That's the thing.
I think that's the beauty of the ending here. That that a lot of these predictions, like for some things, just are completely off.
Did you also see the clip of George R. R. Martin talking about how if you write a story that is going toward a point that you have planned out, and people figure out the point, and then you switch that point just to be subversive, you are killing your story.
Yep.
Because, people don't expect it, but it is not justified based on what has come previously. Just because predictions are subverted doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
I think you're arguing against your own point here.
Anyway,
that's why it confused me.
I'm just saying, imagine if one of my predictions is totally correct.
That's what I mean. You're arguing against yourself.
What?
Because if it is correct, and we were subverted by it being correct, it does not mean it's good. So you're saying...
But that doesn't mean my prediction isn't good. It's different. Okay. Yes, Jaime goes back to Cersei. I don't like it.
Yeah, me neither. I more than anything, I thought that Brienne was done wrong.
Yeah,
it's just...
I hate what they did with Brienne because let's just...
I agree with what you said. I don't like it, but I think it's what his character would have done. And I think it's justified, and I think it's.
But why show 8 years of character change?
Because that's exactly what real life people are like. You ever see people like fall back into abusive relationships, that kind of thing?
Why did Jaime kill the Mad King?
Because he cared about the innocents, and he cared, and yes, I know exactly the line you're talking about. And he says that when he thinks he doesn't have a chance of living or seeing Cersei.
To be fair, it did seem a little insincere the way he said it.
He just kind of tossed it out there like and in that scene I felt he was kind of just tossing out like kind of excuses like, oh, Cersei will win. Oh, well, even if this happens, it's this. Like, he's trying to just like he's trying to kind of save his brother at the same time as like kind of not think about all the bad shit that's going to happen to his loved one.
Right. I mean, on a positive note, him and Jaime's reaction, or him and Tyrion's reaction, Tyrion and Jaime, not reaction,
their
interaction.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Just their interaction, that whole scene, I think it was really great. They're really good together. I hope I get to see them both in different better.
I could not take that scene seriously because of how absurd Tyrion's plan was, though.
Oh yeah, about the dinghy?
Yeah, like he wants to let Jaime go so that he can make his way into King's Landing like during the siege to get to Cersei and then take her off of a dinghy past the, like, it's very unclear. And it's especially unclear because he was saying there's not going to be an Iron Fleet for much longer, and I'm like, what do you mean? And then it turns out they nerfed the Scorpion, so yeah, he was right. There's not going to be an Iron.
Justin, you love to jump.
But it was just like I could not take that plan seriously, so the whole scene did not land for me.
Yeah, it's I don't even know what to say about again, I like the interaction. I like how they act with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the content per se. Did you like it?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
think
it's safe
fits.
to assume that you do.
I mean, there's things that I don't like.
Let's just start. Let's back up a little bit to when Tyrion actually decides to go and see Jaime. How he's like, I outrank you guys to the Unsullied, and no, like they should know like that they're related, and that Tyrion will. I mean, he's failed Dany before. It just makes little sense to me how they could be so willy-nilly like, okay.
Because that's the chain of command. That's how it works.
Maybe. I mean, I could see that
like that. I mean,
in black and white, but there's context here.
But yes, but the context is that in medieval times that didn't matter. If someone who is above you told you what to do, you are more than likely, if you're not like a noble or someone in charge, and you're like a fly on a piece of shit, essentially.
Why didn't Dany tell them to keep an eye on
That's
herself?
probably just kind of
lazy writing.
No, I think that's her being forgiving, and I think that's
she was pissed that Jaime betrayed them. She was gonna probably
or just an oversight. I mean, she probably doesn't expect her closest advisor, who just revealed treason of her other closest advisor, to then go around and
I don't
free
know. Her
brother.
relationship with Tyrion has not been
Tyrion himself revealed his own treason to her,
and he told her exactly why he did it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he wouldn't do it again. He thinks he's doing it for the greater good while still being treasonous towards her. I think she should reasonably expect that he would do it again.
I don't think his discussion of Jon's heritage is treasonous, but I do think that that he could have played it better with Daenerys.
Yeah, no, but by no means is discussing.
But I think he did play it well overall.
I don't think discussing Jon's heritage is treasonous because it's just fact. You know, you're not saying anything outlandish, anything like that. I mean, Dany will see it as treasonous because they didn't come to her first, because it does affect her. And
the thing is that they also didn't know that it was forbidden knowledge. I mean. They didn't know that Daenerys forbade Jon to tell anyone.
Okay.
It was like just like, hey, this is a secret, don't tell anyone. Hey, this is a secret, don't tell anyone. Hey,
you're getting good with the microphone, Shawn. Distance for effect. Okay. Anyway, Tyrion then liberates Jaime, which again pissed me off. Sorry.
But it's consistent with his character. It pisses you off, but like
that I will give, because he was liberated by Jaime before.
And his weakness, his number one weakness has always been his belief that his family is better than they always are. And which...
Not Cersei. He did wish that she would die at some point.
Yes, but he's always believed that she is somehow redeemable. And even in the darkest moments where he says, oh, she's a monster, he's always gone and tried to redeem her. Or find something that would like prove that, hey, she's really not as bad as she seems. But sometimes your family members are as bad as they seem. And that's, I think...
Yeah, but he's supposed to be the smartest person in Westeros. Right?
I know. And smart people have weaknesses and make stupid mistakes for their family. It's real life. It's not supposed to be like, oh, he's like this nigh omniscient, like...
I would buy
brain.
the real life thing if everything else followed the same logic.
See, but the characters all generally they follow a logic of like they're real people. They make mistakes. They suffer from those mistakes. They're products of their mistakes, and like the the areas or the locations that their mistakes were made in. And that's kind of, I think, one of the other bigger overarching themes of the series is that like we're not like good or bad people or morally gray people. We're just people who are products of our environment. And
I would be inclined to agree with that if it was still following the writing of the earlier seasons. But I think that has gone out the window with the later season. Like,
see, and I think that it's the tone has shifted because, like what I said, like they don't have things to condense from. They just have bones, and it's hard to put bones on. It's hard to put meat. It's hard to put skin on bones where there isn't a lot of meat, and you have to make your own meat. So it's kind of like you have a strong buff dude who's like, his legs and torso are made out of like strongman Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then his arms are kind of sausagey because like they ran out of product to like stuff him with.
You make the weirdest metaphors, Shawn.
Okay, let's move on.
So like the mountain, but we'll get there.
Oh God.
So Tyrion at the end of that scene, he says how tens of thousands of lives are worth one tiny dwarf's life, his own life, right? And it just made me think, Endgame spoilers, it made me think like,
oh, I've not seen Endgame, so.
Well, but you must know by now some stuff.
No, I know nothing.
Okay. God damn it.
I know that Ant-Man goes up Thanos' ass, and then...
you know, you are more correct than you think you are.
I can't wait to get to that part if I ever get there.
No, okay. Look, well, in previous Avengers movies, like Tony Stark has sacrificed some part of his life to make what, like,
Tony dies. Yeah, I know
God
that.
Damn it. So then I can't
you
say
do
it.
know
All
stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much like one of the big spoilers, though. Like,
okay. So
like,
I put like
he's gotten paid for how long? He's got to be tired of it.
Oh yeah,
he's got to die.
No, he's
sometime.
good. He's good. But so Tyrion, I put Tyrion equals Tony Stark in a weird way, in a way that doesn't convince me like the movie did. But anyway, after that I wrote, I guess Euron never questioned Tyrion mentioning the baby.
I mean,
they made him the most stupid frat boy.
It sounds like he just wasn't paying attention. Like
you can't chalk it up to that. Like, especially if it meant that much to him, you know, or like
Arturo. He forgot.
You've seen that meme, right, Sean?
No.
Where I think it's Benioff. He's saying, well, I guess.
Oh yeah. The
she
one where
forgot about the Iron Fleet. And so now people are always saying, well, the characters forgot.
Yeah.
It's just, nah.
And now let's talk a little bit about Euron, because I saw a video. I've been watching lots of reviews and stuff about Game of Thrones, and one of the ones that I watched was by I think it was, I may be getting this wrong, and I'm sorry, but it's by Ideas of Ice and Fire is the channel name, and they were talking about Euron's portrayal of his character in the show versus the portrayal of his character in the books. And in the books, I mean, first of all, aesthetically, they're nothing alike.
Is he less of a knockoff Jack Sparrow?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, he's more grizzly and like badass.
He's more mysterious, is what I got from the video. Like
that too. He is a little piratey, but he's like a little more like mysterious, grizzly piratey. Rather than I wanna fuck. No, there is a little bit of I wanna fuck things piratey in the books too.
But not I wanna fuck the queen. Like, not that kind of attitude.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, not that I got from this video. And again, I haven't actually read those.
But that's not his main motive. His main motive is kind of like to cause terror and make the Ironborn like feared again, kind of thing.
Okay, but what I got from this video is that he's someone that would not get his hands dirty. He'd much rather send out his people to actually do these things for him, and not that he won't do things himself, but that he'll sacrifice people willy-nilly. I keep saying willy-nilly. I'll stop. But anyway, I'll link that video as well, because this guy, he has a whole channel dedicated to A Song of Ice and Fire. Okay, to A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, I think I would put stock in his videos and his opinions, or at least his interpretations of these things. And that's what I'm basing what I'm saying off of. That he's more mystical. Like he went to Valyria, like actual Valyria, where no one dares to go, and came back out not just alive, but with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just seems like he's way more three-dimensional than the Euron that we got, who's just basically a boy.
Yeah, and you want to know why I think that is? I think it's because Euron has like maybe 3 or 4 chapters in the books before the books don't exist.
But there's
there's
a lot in there.
There's a lot, but the issue is that his storylines in the book, it seems to be a bit more tangential than the one that they have for him in this show.
Explain.
Well, kind of like how they simplify a lot of the character storylines that go a lot of side places, like it from the books. Like Brienne and Podrick do a lot of like shit, and then like they eventually run into Lady Stoneheart, and like how Sansa is in the Vale longer in the books.
She never gets to Ramsay.
It's probably one of those things that they've had to like cut and trim down from like what George told him his end game was.
Yeah, I just don't think there's an excuse for this, because I literally have no idea what his motive actually is. I mean, is it actually just to f the queen here? I feel like there has to be something driving him, and that doesn't get portrayed here. Whereas in the books, even in the 3 or 4 chapters, I mean, we know a lot about Ned. He was never a point of view character.
Well, he says it when he comes to power in the Iron Islands. He essentially wants to make the Iron Islands great again.
He said, "I want to f the queen."
Exactly. He said that he says we're going to build the biggest fleet ever seen, and then then we're gonna go to King's Landing, and we're going to.
Actually, he talks about Daenerys first. He says, "I'm gonna give Daenerys."
Yeah, he's gonna get Daenerys, and like he's going to take over, and then he realizes, well, I still want power, and Daenerys is out of the question. So let me try and bargain with the other power and try and get a leg up
and a dick in. It doesn't sell me though. I don't know. Because again, I've been confused about Euron. I think I've made that clear, and like, what the heck is he actually doing or wanting? And it's not enough for me here.
Yeah, I think Euron is someone who, from the perspective of someone who's only seen the show, is someone who'd like. I don't think he has a clear motive, and it doesn't help that he just sort of pops up everywhere to interact with other characters. He just seems like this sort of random-ish character. And even if you can say that generally he just wants to make the Iron Islands great again, I don't think that that's really portrayed very effectively. And he seems like a character that's just kind of there to be used sometimes for some random things. Like, he just doesn't seem consistent.
He's just Braun.
Poor Braun.
No, God damn it.
Speaking of which, well, that'll be in predictions.
I meant Brawn.
I thought you meant like...
No, but I mean, I like that we'll talk about it in predictions. But he's just basically a hunk of meat if we're going back to the meat and bones thing. No brain, in my opinion. Because, again, he didn't question the baby, and like there were all these memes of like, is he going to get it? Is he going to like think about it?
I can sort of buy that he just doesn't have time to question the baby. It doesn't seem like that much time has passed. However, I do still think that I do agree that he feels unfocused in this, in his character intention.
Yeah. Then I think now's the point that we get to the fight. At least Drogon.
What about do we want to talk about the little scene with Arya and the Hound before the fight? Like when they're just going in.
Is it not stupid? Tell me you agree it's stupid.
What?
Tell me you agree it's stupid.
No, I think it makes sense.
They didn't have to show her. I don't think they. Why did they waste time on that?
Because she has to. Well, I don't like what they've done with Arya, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But they have to show that they're going to take out the mountain. Yeah,
like they gotta show, like that's what I think. Pretty much everything before the battle, like, is establishing what like all the people in there. Like they gotta show them, like, at least, hey, they're here. Like this is their plan. Kind of, we're gonna fuck shit up together. Like,
I guess, but she's a faceless man. Why did she have to go in as
Not
herself?
really.
But she can use the faceless magic. Don't give me that, yes.
She hasn't used it in a long time.
Doesn't matter.
I feel like they are. See, I do have a problem with the way that Arya has been handled. I felt like her.
I wish they could have used her faceless man more.
Well, I feel like they're trying to depower her, right? Like they, have her panicking in the Battle of Winterfell.
Quit jumping.
They have her wanting to have sex with Gendry, which felt super unnatural. Then she doesn't want to, even though her lines in the previous episode made you think she was. And then now she's being like, it feels like she is someone who has been indoctrinated into this sort of cult, but she's not quite there. Like she's slowly reverting back to her normal self, where every once in a while she shows some semblance of humanity. So when they're going up to the Red Keep, she's like a machine and she's just going forward. And then
just like real people who've been brainwashed.
Yeah, and like, and I'm sort of okay with that, but I do feel like she does have these skills that are still useful. And it feels weirdly handled to me.
I want to touch on the real people thing, because that seems to be a strong point of yours, Shawn. Yeah, people do revert back, but that doesn't mean that all of them do, and that doesn't mean
I know, and not all of these characters do, but I feel like that people are wanting so many, like, I hesitate to say fairy tale endings, but like I feel like so many people want happy endings, but like at the same time, the happy endings that like that I'm hearing that people want, or things that they want more of, like in my opinion, would almost cheapen the story or cheapen the whole experience. So, or at least the writing that has come before it.
Something that like you can argue, right, that well, obviously people don't always follow their character arcs, right? If we were to define people as developing on a linear path, right? And it makes sense that some of the characters would not. I think that is inherently unsatisfying, right? So when it happens on this level, where so many characters seem to be betraying their character arcs, I think people are going to be upset, right? And I think that sort of explains some of the reaction. Mm-hmm. I think, you need to watch Avatar, because I'm going to reference it again. I'm sorry.
The blue one. I'm just kidding.
No, not. In Avatar, I will try not to spoil it too much, but there is a character that is consistently conflicted between basically like good and evil.
Zuko?
Yes.
Yeah. You know everything, like all these spoilers for everything, Shawn.
And in the end of the second season, at the lowest act, he chooses evil. And that feels like he has been going up and up and up, and then he goes right back down, right? So he goes back to where he started, and that is unsatisfying.
At the end?
But that, well, at the end he goes to good. But that point where he chooses like the wrong path feels justified based on the way it has been framed and the way it has been developed. Although he has been like following this path of development, I feel like it's always hinted at that he's not really, like, he's still conflicted enough. And I think that the problem that people are having is that is not necessarily portrayed in these characters. And sometimes it's because time limitation, sometimes it's because I think that it wasn't really well considered the way that the scenes were framed, and we'll get into that with Drogon. Like, just in the way that the individual scenes are framed to portray the conflictions within the characters. I feel like the sense that people are getting is that it feels unbelievable that these characters are switching because it felt so obvious their progressions.
Well, I'll agree with the fact that it didn't. A lot of the times they didn't portray it, and I really wish we could have the book, because I don't think that the TV show could ever do, or any kind of visual media could ever do as good as like a book could, like in terms of displaying like inner thoughts of a character. I think that is George R. R. Martin's strongest point with his books, the fact that you can get not only like see what they do, but like
see what they think.
See what they think. And I think that there are really a lot of beats in the show that are either misinterpreted a lot or just missed, that we, like, as an audience might not understand, just because we can't see, like, one person might see an actor's interpretation of a character's thoughts they probably have in the script of some kind, and like misinterpret their reaction of that or their portrayal of it as something completely different.
Okay.
And I think that's just, I mean, the nature of human, like we all read people differently.
Yeah, but if George R. R. Martin did have input in this, I just feel like I read somewhere that D&D they have like a super tight contract with HBO, and basically HBO can't do Game of Thrones without them. And the fact that they chose to go for less episodes and stuff feels like they're just done. Like they don't care enough about the episode to give about the series to give us a like basically what we deserve.
But I honestly think that if we had more episodes without source material, it would have been a much more disservice than people already think it is.
No, because if they can still do everything they want to do, but if they take the time to build it properly, I think that could fill up the rest of the season.
But I don't think that they could effectively. They're not George R. R. Martin.
Yeah, I don't
think it would be better content. It would just be more, and it would probably be maybe even worse, like he's saying.
And I think the reasons that people are saying that they have bad writing or that they think they have bad writing are because their strengths aren't in what they're being forced to do right now. Their strengths are taking already existing characters and plot lines and thickening them up and creating great like scenes that support these things. But when they have to make them themselves without like George R. R. Martin like writing out the events in detail, I don't think they do as well. Because if you look at all their previous scenes that are just their original scenes, they're probably some of the best and probably add to the Game of Thrones universe, probably more so than the books did in some certain spots.
I don't know what their own scenes are, but
for example, like how Arya was assistant to Tywin during season 2, rather than being in the book. She was assistant to Roose Bolton, and that would not have been a very fun thing to watch for like most of a season.
But that was something that was established by George R. R. Martin. That Arya was assistant to somebody. They just switched the roles to who.
But their strength is in adapting material.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's like imagine someone's like really, really, really great at arranging music, but their music that they write on their own isn't that great. It's kind of like that. They can take like this arrangement or this piece that probably this is a metaphor that's getting a little extended, but they could probably take like a piece that say doesn't sound that great on its own and like add a few things and like make the piece sound good for the medium that they want it to. And I think they've done a very good job at adapting what they've had for television. And I think that the people are saying that it's going downhill, but because they aren't as good as making the meat.
The reason why I talked about this is because you framed that as that being their own original scenes. And that was my point. That's not the original scenes. That's what Yestin was saying. That's adapting.
Is. The dialogue is completely different. Like they're talking about completely different things. Like, sure, the people are in the same places, but they're serving different functions. It'd be like, I mean, I can't even think of a metaphor for that. But like,
because like you said that they're good at thickening lines, but their whole thing has been stripping down these complex arcs that are just too thick.
The thing is that they don't have anything to strip. That like they've probably beefed up from what they've had is what I'm saying. Like
they have a whole world of Westeros.
They have a whole world, but they only have what George's story, and what George's story they've told them probably is kind of bare bones for a lot of it until the very end.
Maybe, but I don't think it's that hard. I know that I don't write for television. I don't think it's that hard to see a character's arc through if you like, especially if you don't try to subvert expectations at every turn.
I think that it's not that. I think that they're giving not. I don't know how to say the words.
To me,
Okay,
it's
go
like
ahead.
someone, like they were drawing a line with a ruler and asked to finish it freehand. I don't think it's that hard to keep it relatively straight.
But instead, they've gone way off. And I think that is the problem that people are having is that, number one, on an individual scene level, there are things that just do not feel right. All the stuff with the stupid scorpions doesn't make any sense. And there's this sort of lack of realism that was previously so prevalent within the show. Fact that
are we talking about like the character, the dialogue, or or the shooting? Because I will agree 100% with like some of the filming things. Like my biggest gripe about the show, and albeit it's not a huge gripe, is that a lot. I think I probably said last episode, a lot of the things that they do to look cool and HBO-ish conflict with some of the things that they themselves have built.
it seems like it would be so easy to, for example, restructure the Battle of Winterfell to be more believable and more engaging. But that wasn't done because they wanted some cool spectacle. And that combined with them not fulfilling character arcs in a realistic way, even if the characters will end up this way in the books, but them not taking the time necessary to make those character arcs feel justified are making people react in this way. And people are saying they're bad writers, and obviously, yes, everyone has strengths, right? And their strengths have been shown, and now I think their weaknesses are being shown. But that I do not think justifies some of the really absurd things that have happened over this season, especially with the way that they write like individual scenes and the way that they frame stuff, and that all combined leads to this really negative reaction, I think.
See, I mean, I just disagree with a lot of that part. Just straight up.
I guess to before we move on, I just want to say that what I got from this is that they're pretty good at writing individual characters interacting with each other, at least when they have more content to back it up with or to draw from. But when it comes to actually plotting like an overarching story, that it's just not good. And it didn't have to be so not good, in my opinion. But if that's okay, we can leave it there. Because we could just kind of go in circles here, like Jamie's arc. So,
I mean, if that's what you want to call remission, I guess.
Okay. So next, I put like before they started shooting scorpions. I put there's no way that they're gonna hit him. That they're gonna hit Drogon so close or so quickly. Yeah. I put no way scorpions are gonna work that well again.
Yeah, and that was.
And there's
not a big gripe of mine.
They built up the scorpions for 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
And they might as well have not even introduced them at all, because
they should have at least like talked about one of their weaknesses, or at least shown one of their weaknesses. Like, hey, they can't turn very fast, but if you hit someone, you're probably gonna do some damage. Like
some kind of rules for it. Yeah, no, I agree. Some limitations.
I think that's you speak of rules, and that word kind of like really got like clicked, and I think that's a really good way to describe what I think is wrong with the action scenes, is that their rules aren't consistent. The rules of the action scenes either aren't consistent with the world they set up, or the world they set up kind of forgets to mention things that are important in the action scenes.
Yeah.
So like I'm kind of like talking like there's plot scenes and then there's action scenes,
or
like
just following the lore, I guess. Of the world. Like keeping the world. Like the laws of physics have to apply everywhere.
Yeah,
it's a magic system, and you have hard magic systems and you have soft magic systems. And Game of Thrones has been a very hard magic system up till this point, in that the way that things behave feels consistent, and it feels, obviously it's not realistic, but within this magical environment, we can believe what happens because it is always consistent within the environment, and now it is not consistent.
See, and I think most of it has been consistent in terms of the story. It's just my gripes with the inconsistencies are usually when they do things to look cool.
Yeah. Something that I remember striking me from a little while back is that the Faceless Men said that someone has to be dead to wear their mask, right? To wear their face. But the waif that Arya fights wears her own face against her. And it's like, can they now use living people's faces?
See, someone was saying that those are other types of magics, kind of similar to the ones that the red woman, Melisandre, has on her shelves, for example.
They never made that clear, though. You know?
Yeah, and I feel like that's something like they could have.
Like if that is what it was.
Yeah.
Then we get a okay. So before I go on to the castle, you know, just to put it. To say it here, Dany just completely destroys the Iron Fleet.
Yep.
This thing that has been such a menace that she could have taken out when Rhaegal got shut down if like the same rules were to apply every episode.
I don't think it's that. I think it was that she was just so shocked in the previous episode by losing her son that like her immediate thought was rage, and then she's like, I probably shouldn't kill myself by driving straight into these fucking boats, and then she leaves. I don't think that was a manipulation of like the rules of like them having auto target or whatever. But I do think that that like the scene this episode was a bit
over actiony.
Yeah.
And the scenes feel overly actiony, like Shawn was saying. They feel like they're too far into the spectacle. It feels unrealistic that this huge amount of opposition. I think last episode I said, she should. At some point I was like, she could just fly over the city and dodge the scorpion bolts and blow up the scorpions, and it would make more sense that they were hidden in the city. And I was kind of joking, but that's exactly what happened.
And you know, as much cool stuff as they have in the show, I would much rather sacrifice a few of the cool dollars being focused in one spot to have them spread out a little more evenly on the episode in the sake of realism.
Like Ghost getting pet.
Or no, that's not realistic in terms of story. But I mean,
totally. John has loved Ghost. I mean, we don't have to get into it, but go on.
But I mean, like, in terms of maybe being a little bit more realistic in, like, maybe the size or, like, the way they show the placement of armies, and maybe, like...
Or the placement of King's Landing itself. Because it used to be right in front of the water, like touching the water.
But it also used to be...
It also has three sides, and we usually see the northernmost side, which is the one that we always see with the trees, and it's also winter.
Is it though?
That's nitpicky.
Winter kills the trees, Arturo.
It is winter in terms, like, if you see the previews for the next episode, like
that's
snow.
ash.
Was it? I kind of got I kind of got it. That's was like both
ash.
Snow and ash.
Fire Nation. It's ash.
I thought they had one like coming. They had like shots coming from like high, like further than ash could have.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I
think it was definitely supposed to be ash. That was my interpretation.
That would make sense too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's sort of the recompense of her. Yeah.
Were you gonna say something yesterday?
Nothing. The Golden Company. She also takes out.
Oh, super easy. And the guy, Harry, whatever, Strickland,
yeah.
Just being a total pussy.
Oh, yeah.
It was so sad. I really wanted to see... Well, they didn't have budget for elephants, guys. So obviously that's what really did them in. So then you see many people manning the castle walls. And I thought, the Lannisters should have manned Winterfell, because you don't put... That's how you defend a castle, with people inside the castle, not outside the castle. Yeah. Right? So
once again, cool factor. Come on, people.
Oh God, yeah. There's also, have you guys seen the meme of the loyal northern soldier?
Yes, I love seeing.
At
I'm
one
glad
point he
that
was a white, but then he's not.
Really?
There's a shot of him like being a white. 'Cause I guess they're like people aren't gonna notice him, but like he's gotten a lot of spotlight.
Yeah.
He's unique enough that he's noticed as an extra.
Yeah. Okay,
I wonder if we could go back and like find more of those kind of extras.
that would be awesome. You know how Yestin said have like a continuous sequence of each character, a continuous sequence of each extra.
That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see like the obsessive. Sorry, there's a dog nearby. I had to pet it.
Like Ghost. Go on.
I couldn't. I forgot what I was gonna
Can't wait
say.
to see the obsessive.
Oh, I can't wait to see like as like what happens with every fandom after the content stops coming out. Like the obsessive like re-combing over everything, and I can't wait to see all like the things that we'll get like once all these fandoms are bored, like stuff like that, or stuff like they'll like finding these extras that were in this episode and also in this episode and this scene.
That's at least 2 or 3 years worth of stuff.
Yeah,
that we're gonna be able to get. So Game of Thrones isn't totally gonna be dead.
Oh no!
I mean,
and
the
the
writer
spin-offs
killed it into the ground. So
I mean, you can keep on beating that dead horse if you want to. But
call me Tyrion. Okay, so they show a mother and child, right, who didn't make it into the gate.
Yes.
Along with Jamie not making it into the gate. Now, well, we'll get to the mother and child later.
Well, let's just talk about like the breach of the walls of the army rushing in. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, Dany didn't need an army.
Yeah.
I mean, like with all that dragon power, all she did was let the army in, but she could have easily roasted all of them and just taken the whole city by herself.
So when I was first watching, my up until this scene, like before the battle even happened, my guess was that Daenerys was gonna fuck up the Iron Fleet and like fuck up the Scorpions, and then the walls will be breached, and then Jaime was gonna reach Cersei. The bells will start tolling, but Cersei will have like some kind of trap sprung for like the invading armies or something like that. And then like the bells will be their downfall, and then like they'll have to battle from like an uphill point and from there, so it wouldn't be so one-sided.
Yeah, that's way more strategy than you gave.
See, but the thing is, just because it's more strategy and more like complex and more, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or like it's better than what we got. It's just more convoluted, and that doesn't necessarily
be better. Because here we watched essentially a bully beating on a nerd, I think, because there was no real pushback.
And that's part of that. I mean, that's kind of keeping consistent with the rules of the universe and the fact that if you have a dragon, you're just fucking overpowered.
Okay, you say that, but they killed Rhaegal so easily.
Exactly, because she was caught off guard.
I don't. Did you see? I sent the Rhaegal death scene re-edited so that it makes a little bit more sense. And they basically the only thing that they do is they have Euron's ships go from behind the rock first, and then they fire a bunch of bolts, and they just happen to hit Rhaegal a few times, and Dany happens to dodge the bolts. Again, it feels inconsistent.
Once again, cool factor. It's always cool factor because.
And how does that not make D&D bad writers if they choose cool factor over
actual writing substance? And I think that the writing in general is lower quality, but...
See, well, I mean, that's more... Wouldn't that be more directing? I mean, please educate me, because I don't know, like, the details of, like, filming, like, I don't know, per se, like, what this job gets specifically in charge of this.
But I can't say that I know either. The most... I'm gonna humble brag here. The most experience I've gotten with this is just kind of being behind the scenes at award shows, that kind of thing, and that's nothing compared to like writing and film and producing a show like this. But the script had to say that this and this had to happen. They do also list, I'm pretty sure, how they envision it happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like a storyboard that like is sketched out.
So the directors think of ways to make these things to come to life, like directing techniques, camera work techniques, how to film these things so that they can maybe later be edited down.
But it is the writers and the showrunners at a base level that actually decide what exactly will happen.
Exactly.
Like Arya died 7 times in this episode.
She should have.
Yeah. Yeah. She did.
It should have been deep fried Arya, but she was fine.
And I think a lot of it, like I said, is the mismanagement of funds, because like HBO wants to be HBO in a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I think HBO does a very good job, but sometimes HBO is very too much HBO.
Yeah, I feel like, perhaps in the past they were restrained by the writing, right? They could say, we can only do so much of this dragon stuff because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But now
they
could do whatever they want.
And maybe now that they have less titties to show,
that's true.
they have to be more HBO-y in different ways than before.
But see, obviously, like, that is not what makes the show special. Like, so many people came out and said, with all of this cool special effects, my favorite scenes are still just Varys and Tyrion talking, and like, people love that.
It's never been the nude scenes, but that's HBO.
Yeah.
HBO has been the nude scenes. And to be fair, a lot of the nude scenes were in the books, but HBO added a lot more of the nude scenes.
I'm sure HBO would prefer it, though, if the audience reacted positively. Like, I wonder how much of it actually was control from HBO,
I'm
like pushing like action drama, and how much of it was the writers.
I'm sure it is, but I'm sure it's not the first time that like people throw money at things and expect it to be good, when like they've thrown money at this thing before and like they're like, well, we just keep on throwing more money, maybe that they'll use it wisely. And if you keep throwing money at people, then like they'll just keep using more to use more money, because I mean, if you don't use it, then you lose it.
I think that there definitely needs to be maybe more checks and balances that there aren't.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that's a lot of the nature of corporate art making.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's a bit bigger philosophical discussion.
So, are we done with the breach, or is there anything else?
Oh yeah, we can.
Yeah, well, I guess Tyrion walks in and just starts walking around, which is weird. And he sees, the fight is ensuing, and Dany is killing more scorpions. Then Cersei is approached by Qyburn, who says, all the scorpions are down. How would he know? I don't know. But
I mean, pretty visual.
I guess they have a good view.
Although, like I said, that's one of the things they could have waited. They probably could have shown like an earlier shot of Cersei seeing them blown up, and then like after like another sweep of Dany, like him coming in saying, "Oh, they're all gone now."
I feel like.
And maybe like they should have told her that the Iron Fleet was gone first in the first scene. But I mean, these are all really nitpicky things.
I think it's fair to be nitpicky here.
Oh, I think it is fair to be nitpicky, but I don't think they diminish from the overall quality of the show. At least not these tiny nitpicky things.
I think it was a visual spectacle for sure. Like, it kept me entertained, but I don't like where it leaves the show. That's my gripe with it.
See, and I like the show because I like where this and I like that we like and dislike it for the same the same opposite reasons.
Yeah. Real quick, I made a list. You can cut this out if you want. I like
lists.
I made a list of things that were built up and didn't matter.
Okay.
So the Golden Company.
Oh yeah.
Built up for like 2 seasons. She just like destroys them.
Oh yeah.
And then they're just fighting like King's Landing soldiers. Bran warging during the Battle of Winterfell doesn't seem to have had any effect unless they bring it back in the last episode, which I don't think will happen. The power of the scorpions, obviously, built up for quite a while. Didn't matter. Drogon could just fly. I mean, I get that she would have maybe somehow developed some strategy to deal with them, but it just seems absurd. There's so many of them, and she doesn't get hit a single time. The plan to put Jon on the throne, presumably, I am assuming, especially since everyone is sort of thinking of this last episode as being the aftermath, I don't think that will really matter that much. Who knows? Maybe it will.
I don't think plans that don't go the way they're intentionally or initially planned, I don't think that counts as as unfinished storylines, or at least that very last one. I would say I would wait until next episode.
Of course, it just, to me, it feels less like them. It feels like they're doing stuff and they're like, but we want to do this cool thing, so we're going to change our course. It feels less like that than them actually saying, well, this character might make this decision based on what they did before. I've drank too much wine. Next.
I'll drink to that.
Jamie's character arc, we've talked about that.
Circle.
Yes. Cersei. What was there? Was one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I don't quite remember what it was. But
how about Arya putting Cersei on her list?
Is Cersei on Arya's list? What is that horse metaphor, Shawn?
Excuse me.
Why are you asking me?
What do you mean by horse metaphor? They're talking about the horse itself.
Yeah, that horse got a better send off than Ghost did.
Oh yeah, got more care. Okay, we'll get there. So now maybe we can get there. We can get to Euron surviving.
Oh,
and
God.
What a horrible scene that was.
Oh, he survives and he swims to that very same beach where Jamie ends up, just to randomly find him, to challenge him for some reason, even though he recognizes that the city is burning and it's dying, which again gives credence to my point that Euron just feels like a character that just does whatever based on how they want him to react with the other characters. He doesn't seem to have an actual motivation, or he's just crazy.
So, question. A similar thing happened to Davos in the books, the end of season 2. Would you be as upset if, when the books come out, that's exactly what happens? That Euron in the final battle of King's Landing, he gets blown off his ship, and then he finds Jaime on the beach and they fight.
I mean, again, my presumption is that even if the character arcs work out in the same way, that there will be substance in between everything that we have seen that will make these what feel like coincidences in the show or unearned plot developments feel more earned within the books, because he will be able to add more content basically to justify what has happened.
So you're saying they have nothing to work with right now?
I'm saying that there's too little time, there's not enough substance, so things just feel unearned. If he had a whole thing about how Euron got blown off his ship or something, but then
I think they put him in too many unlikely scenarios that he has come on top of, and that this one just feels like another one that they stack on.
But I mean, that's pretty much everyone who's alive right now.
You're right, and that's a bad thing.
But I mean, that's pretty much how living is sometimes. Everyone who's survive, everyone every human on the planet or on the imaginary planet has survived a whole bunch of shit that realistically not always the most realistic shit, but sometimes people do survive this stupid shit.
And the way that
bells
the way that people perceive stories is as an almost average aggregate of everyone's personal experience. So yes, these random weird coincidences happen, but for them to be happening to multiple characters several times feels like a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. And yes, obviously, you could say that he did randomly land on the same beach that Jaime did, but the fact that it is being put into a show where the randomness events should be considered makes people react negatively to that. And I think it is because people see this as a sort of you roll a dice, and if the dice rolls too many times on unlikely outcomes, then things start to become unbelievable.
Yeah. And what you were saying, Shawn, is all these unlikely events, being alive is an unlikely event.
Sorry.
You burping that many times is an unlikely event.
Really?
It's not really, though. No, I mean, this is common.
And that's the thing, though. If all these unlikely events happen so often, they start to be, they're no longer unlikely. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what makes it boring to me. The fact that Euron is in all these unlikely places, in all these unlikely situations that it just seems like it's overused.
But you were just talking about how he went to the Doom of Valyria where nobody else went and came back with all this cool shit. And
in the book. What? What's your point?
There's a difference between him doing a like mystical thing and him just randomly teleporting into these non-mystical characters.
That's like he wanted to do this. He didn't happen upon Valyria. Like it was his choice to go there. I don't know how he could have chosen to go where Jamie was going to be if he didn't know about where Jamie was going to be. And I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, he wasn't trying to find Jamie. He was trying to swim to the shore, and that was probably like if you look at it like. There's probably not. It's all rock. The Red Keep was built on like the cliff. Like there's probably not a lot of sandy beaches there.
Yeah, but this is just one in many instances where he just teleports, so to speak.
It just, amongst all this chaos and all of his other men getting, presumably blown overboard the same way he did, he ends up being the only one to show up at this random beach at the same time as Jamie in the same place. And then they have this stupid battle scene where he just doesn't kill him immediately. And again, it's like he says to Jamie, the city is dying. Like he seems to recognize that they have lost, but he wants to kill Jamie anyway just because he's a crazy guy.
Because he knows he has no other option. He has no ships. His allies have died. He's killed one of the Queen's dragons. So if he is found alive, he's probably gonna. You were right there.
Oh. just choked the fuck out on his.
I'm dying.
You're choking harder than Sandor was choked by the mountain.
We haven't even gotten there. I've been still coughing from having the flu, and I had to cough while drinking wine, and it didn't go well. Continue.
No. We can take a second for you to come back to the world of the living.
A few moments later.
We haven't even gotten to the hound.
Like you keep jumping ahead, Yeston. You keep mentioning things that happen like 20-30 minutes later.
Yeah, but we're all pretty excited to talk about the episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, if anything, it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to unload.
True. It's what makes this fun, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like I felt now when you guys were attacking me about Rhaegal?
No. I still feel like it's pretty like three-way.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
As much as I'd prefer to refrain from that phrase.
Both sides of the madness. All right.
Okay. Yes, and take a break. Okay.
I hate when you get sick and then you just keep coughing.
All right. Try that sip of wine again. This time with less death.
Okay. Just
pretend you're the Battle of Winterfell. Less death.
There's a lot of death there, just not death of people we cared about.
Yeah.
Hey man, Jorah, I cared about Jorah, but I didn't think his death was earned.
R.I.P. What do you mean? He died in service of the person he would have died.
Who then became a mass murderer.
Yeah, in service
exactly
of the,
she's alone.
In
because she's alone in this
world. Who just like sat her dragon there and let the death crawl over it.
We're skipping. We're doing
yeah.
You know what my problem is?
You have a lot.
You're ginger.
Scenes that have anything unbelievable in them, like Dany just sitting there letting the dead crawl all over her.
Yeah, or having a dragon there.
Or Tyrion's... No! Don't give me the damn Samwell Tarly argument, Jesus. Or Tyrion's stupid plan when he's having his like sensual scene with Jaime. It's not sensual, that's the wrong word.
Intimate.
Different kind of incest there, but...
Ew. Intimate.
Or Dany burning the city, but it being framed like she's going mad rather than she's making a decision based off of the previous elements of her character arc. It just makes the scene unbelievable. Or the fact that he doesn't immediately kill Jaime, like he stabs him twice in the side, and then Jaime just keeps running around finding Cersei, like, and he just randomly found Jaime on the beach, even though there were a bunch of other people who got kicked off the ship. And where were they? What happened to them?
A lot of these instances that you're pointing out, I find like they're the same reasons why I'm enjoying the show almost, because it feels like almost the most logical conclusion that you never even thought of.
Just
given
because
these
it's
characters.
subversive doesn't mean it's good.
Well, they're not. That's the thing. They're not subversive. They're just. They feel realistic, like you, because I think of these plots, and this is just a very general statement of a lot of these storylines that I saw, especially the ones that ended this episode, is that like to me, based on their actions, their previous actions, the characters, the way they've interacted with characters before, and the motivations that they've been conflicted with and the things that they've been conflicted over, it seems to me that all of the way they meet their ends, because to me it seems like most of the characters on this show meet their ends in relation to the way that the thing that drove them in life,
Except for the Night King.
or the thing. Yes, I will give you that one. I mean, to be fair, we don't even know if he had a motivation,
which is so sad.
But, yeah.
remember when?
I'm saying that a lot of these characters, these ends to these storylines, feel like they're the most logical ones based on their character and based on who they are. Given the context, while still not being, oh, we caught you, we subverted you, we pulled a sneaky on you.
That's
like
what
it
I
doesn't.
think.
Remember,
that's what it doesn't feel like.
Remember
to
when
me.
people were annoyed that the Night King's only purpose ended up being to even the odds between Dany and Cersei, and then even that didn't matter, which means that he had almost no actual impact on the final goings on of the episode, or the ending of the show. It's subversive. It's subversive, Shawn. I thought it was gonna be good, and it subverted my expectations.
I disagree with that, but I that's what I think is interesting. The most interesting is about not like not any specific point, but I'm saying what I find most interesting is the fact that the things that I find fit most within the universe is that you guys find fits least within the universe.
You know, again, my thesis is
thesis. Ooh. Doctoral
my
studies.
Thesis
in,
at this
in
point, I've been writing
studies.
independent studies. My thesis at this point is that all of these character destinations I could be okay with, but I feel like they need more time to cook, because right now it feels like they're taking the pancake out and it's still all goopy and they're just flicking it at me with the stupid spatula and it's hitting me in the face and it's goopy and it's melting all over me. And they're like, well, you were going to be eating that anyway. And I'm like, yeah, but it's
Slurp it off your
different.
face.
And that's what it feels
Slurp it
like.
off your face.
It's unfinished character development.
Okay.
It's too fast.
Let's move on.
What did you think?
I'm really glad that we have such haphazardly constructed metaphors.
Like, I like my straight line, ruler line metaphor. Okay. What were you gonna say yesterday?
I don't remember.
What did you think of?
Oh, well, I'm sort of jumping ahead. I was gonna ask you what you thought.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we won't.
We were talking about Euron, and we kind of beat his horse into the ground now. So which horse do we beat now?
Well, speaking of horses, I thought they used the cavalry effectively this time. I mean, the Thraki that were resurrected, whatever.
Yeah. Once again, cool factor at expense of later on.
I saw a video that were talking about how would you actually use these things.
I think we watched the same video.
Probably, but it just basically, as far as cavalry goes, especially because these weren't, the video said these guys aren't heavy cavalry.
Yeah, they're light cavalry.
Right, so it was probably the same video.
Yeah.
And how they're just supposed to be going in and out and just go really quickly and break lines. That's exactly what the cavalry did here. They stormed and they broke people.
See, they can they can do good battle scenes.
Although to be fair, as much as I would have liked to seen cavalry being used effectively, I would have loved to seen it be completely useless because cavalry is more based on shock, which if you're undead, like you're not gonna flinch if there's a giant horse coming toward you because you're dead. You don't give a shit.
Yeah, but it's just about the quick.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like, action.
Yeah,
I mean that's exactly why they do like cavalry, because it's about the shock.
Yeah,
like the whole show is how they're treating it. Anyway,
right.
Sorry, Shawn.
I know you guys like throwing these memes and hyperbole out because you can, but
No,
I accept them.
Thank you, Shawn.
Because I like to throw my memes out and you accept them too.
You can tell what Arturo is like. Because Arturo has sent me stuff that he didn't send to the group chat, which is like significantly more scathing interpretations.
We can talk about the toxicity that has become like the Game of Thrones fandom, and you cannot say it is not toxic, whether or not you agree or disagree with the sentiment. Yeah. There's a lot that is, but I'd rather not talk about it. Let's just
we can say that for later, or maybe for
that can be like that can be around the throne. That's not necessarily off the throne or in the throne. It's kind of like around the throne.
We should have a podcast logo where it's just like one of us sitting on a toilet and the other two are just standing over him. Like, never mind. Let's move on.
Let's not think about this in the bathroom. All right.
Okay. And I thought, while Drogon was destroying it, like finally the dragons show that they are what they are capable of. And again, going back to
and what they're really capable of too.
Yeah, going back to the Battle for Winterfell, that's kind of how, like, you would think that they would have used them that way against the undead who are deathly, no pun intended, vulnerable to fire. Yeah. But that's just a little note.
They do a thing with the dragons in this season where they sort of occupy them while other characters do stuff. So in the Battle of Winterfell, they're flying around in the fog, and then while she's burning the city, other characters are just doing a ton of stuff, and you kind of think it's been a while. Like, it feels like they don't really know how to handle the dragons, so they just sort of put them in a box over here while they have their other characters doing character interactions.
I can see that a little. Yeah.
Okay, and then I mean, when Cersei lost, that wasn't even close to the end of the, like, when you could see that she lost.
You realize she had lost pretty much by the second, like, they said, oh yeah, all the scorpions are gone.
Oh yeah, that was the only thing that would have killed Drogon. And I thought, like, really, she lost already? And
I kind of expected that, though. My expectations were not subverted there.
But see, like, coming from someone, or talking about somebody who blew up the Sept, or is that what it is?
Yeah. The Sept of Baelor,
yeah. The Sept of Baelor. Like, someone who orchestrated that, with help, granted, but still, you would have thought that she'd have some better battle strategy.
So, Qyburn even says to Tyrion, like, your armies are weary, we've been reinforced by the Golden Company, we have the Scorpions, your dragons are vulnerable, and that all makes sense. And I was thinking, wow, like, Cersei does seem to have the upper hand here. But then they just ignore that because suddenly the Scorpions are useless and the dragon can just do whatever it wants.
See, and I think a little bit of that was Qyburn posturing. And I wish they had done more, because I think this is something that will be done better in the books. But I hate saying that because I feel like, oh, well, the books are always better. But I mean, they are. By the nature of books, they're able to go in more detail than a show ever could. But because of that, I think a lot of the complaints that people will have about the overarching story, I don't think will exist when the books exist, assuming that they do exist. But that's another can of worms I'd rather not open. But I was gonna say, what the hell were we talking about?
It's 'cause I don't even remember.
Just Qyburn getting into more of his actual strategy.
I wish they would have taken some of the time, maybe in like if they had more episodes, they could have showed that. What? Even though
you just said that they shouldn't, because, like,
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm glad they do not have more episodes now.
But if they could write
But
better,
if
and they had
if
more
they
episodes.
had source, I mean, I'm talking in a perfect world.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't get me wrong. I think we have a pretty good product, end product for what the restrictions that they've had. But I think in a perfect world, we'd be able to see, or they would show, that Cersei, even though for all the posturing that she's done, she's not. She's at an equal, if not lesser, strategic position to Daenerys. And another thing that they don't exactly, you can't. I don't know if you can exactly show how mismatched the fight is via just the power of one dragon, even with the vulnerabilities of one dragon. We haven't really seen the dragons like unleashed, because every time they die is generally before they can really f it up, pretty much.
You know what we need? Game of Thrones Brotherhood.
I saw that meme too, where they just remake all of Game of Thrones
After the book comes out.
No, I know that. No, but I honestly would love to see in 50 years from now, like a completely redone Game of Thrones.
Faithful.
Totally following the books.
As faithful as you can be to the books, including Lady Stoneheart and all that.
Yeah, or Dany having violet eyes. Or whatever.
And I don't think that like that would, I guess, cheapen this one in any kind of way that I think that it would, if they were to remake Lord of the Rings I don't think it would cheapen the older one. I think it would only go to show like how great these older ones were given the limitations of their time.
Right.
Not to put not to put Lord of the Rings and Game of the Throne. That's like apples and bananas, like not even apples and oranges, just like
the Lannister men surrender.
They do. They throw down their swords.
Yeah, because they don't support Cersei because she rules through fear.
Which is what Dany
and
wants to do.
And I think that's a very good point that kind of serves almost as a little precursor to next episode.
Also, there's a dragon, so like
that too. Hard to be tough when there's a dragon.
But I think it is.
Head.
I think that is the like more to the point where, because Cersei even says like, "Oh, the Lannister men will fight harder than any of the Golden Company because they're like loyal." And then of course they realize they've lost.
We know as the viewer they're not loyal. They rule out of fear.
Yeah.
So or they serve out of.
So
fear.
I definitely think that's what they're getting at.
Yeah.
So then they ring the bells, and that was a leak. Did you guys ever see that leak?
You even mentioned the leak last episode that she goes mad because of the bells.
Actually, I told you that.
No, I didn't.
Outside the podcast, we were driving. I said that I read this leak. I hope it's not true.
And I think a lot of the people are misreading these scenes, and I've seen a lot of people say that the bells drove her crazy or something, which I don't think is what happened.
This is a thing where I think that her performance, I think, makes it look like she is like breaking in some way. And if you watch the way the way that the scene actually plays out, I do understand why people interpret it that way, because I feel like it looks like she's not like making a decision or
it looks like she just snaps.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't think that was the intention.
Her it being a decision was built up throughout the episode, where she was saying everything she said to her advisors, like, we're going to do it with iron and blood or whatever it was, right?
Everything she's been saying since season 2, like since before her dragons could actually blow up cities, that she was going to blow up cities with her dragons.
But the madness spin on this is what people are having a problem with.
And I don't think. And to be fair, I don't think she is mad in the sense that her father was mad.
No.
And I don't think it's any kind of madness in the sense that she has no control over her actions, or that she's in some way mentally ill, like it is kind of written that her father was. I think we've seen a steady stream of events and choices from Daenerys's point of view that we all would agree with, and we all have agreed with in most cases, decisions that she's made, and now she's making the same decisions for pretty much the same reasons, but it's gone a step too far.
And not portrayed realistically enough, in my opinion. Like, as far
Really?
as her actually breaking or deciding to do all the horrible things that she did
And
this episode.
that's again this nature of like the place that characters end up versus how they have actually been portrayed ending up there and how they actually make those decisions in the end in the show, the way that the show is constructed. Like the places that the characters end up is not necessarily the problem. It's the way that this is actually portrayed within the show.
See, but I mean, I think they've done pretty much everything incredibly well to point to the fact that Daenerys was going to do this from the very beginning. Like, it's not hard. I consider this plot point, along with Jon Snow's parentage, to be one of the two biggest things that you probably could have predicted from like the first 5 books.
But the breaker of chains, the mother, like burning all these innocent people, when in the past she was shown to want to save them, that to me felt like she was like the writers betrayed who she was as a character in the same way that they betrayed who Jaime was as a character.
See, but who she decided was innocent was always kind of arbitrary. It's obviously it's very easy to determine that slaves are innocent, but like when you get into this point where no one really supports her, no one loves her, but she knows goddamn that throne is going to be mine, whether or not like the people want her to rule or not, whether they want her to be a good ruler or not, she is going to be a good ruler by fire and blood.
But she agreed with Tyrion that these people have been ruled over by a tyrant and that it was not their fault. She agreed with him. So this doesn't line up with that to me.
She agreed with Jon, or she said to Jon though that there's no love. She can't rule with love if there is no love.
To me, that's a little bit separate because it's Jon's bannermen in the North that named him King of the North. I mean, I don't think she thinks that everyone loves Cersei.
Again, I think it is a problem of execution. Right. So like she has been built up to very much embody this idea that like I will get what I want whatever way I can, and that will be with fire and blood, and that is built up with her and Jon. But the fact that the whole city was surrendering and that this had been, talked to her, Tyrion had talked to her about this, and she's just sitting and she has the option to go and just directly take out the person who has been sort of running this, which is Cersei. And instead she chooses the opposite, and it is framed as her like going mad with the way that the actual character is portrayed within the shot. That I think just that makes it feel super unearned.
Just not really organic to me.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what to say other than I disagree with your guys' views of the show.
It's all good. It's all good.
But that's how it be sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I think could have used more time in the boiler, right? Like maybe they could have restructured the battle slightly so that she was trying to, say that, look, I don't, maybe she's trying at least to rule through some sort of compassion, saying that, look, I don't want to kill all of you, which is exactly what she did with the Lannister soldiers like last season when she burnt Sam's dad and brother, where she's saying like Cersei is a dictator and a tyrant, and that's not what I am. Of course, she's conflicted, right? But I feel like it would have been maybe more believable if she was still trying to hold on to that, and then the people were doing something that really convinced her not to. But instead, it really does, the way it's framed, it really does feel like the bells just drive her insane. And then she snaps.
I read a thing where someone said something about, okay, it was similar to how, Yestin, you sent the video about Rhaegal dying being more believable, right? Someone said, maybe Rhaegal could have survived up until the battle here. And then when the people surrendered, if somebody had shot Rhaegal and killed him then that's when she snaps, because she sees that that they surrendered, yet like a stray soldier decides to shoot a dragon and whatever.
But then her character, not madness, obviously, but her choice would have been more justified, and I think that would have
made more sense with the character.
No, not at all. I think that would have been. I think that would have been like. I don't know. I think it just would have that situation just seems so like unlikely that it just doesn't even like.
She always said throughout the series, like we should not be forsaken for our father's sins, right?
Yes,
and
correct.
But so she's actively trying to stay away from that, and the whole thing about her actually, getting to that.
But that's her character's conflict. The conflict of the idea that she doesn't want to be held accountable for her father's sins, but at the same time, she wants to be accountable for her father's position of power that she has, or that she wants to have.
Her family's, not her father's, because not all her family was bad.
Her family, which, mind you, has a 300-year history of being psycho and burning people to death.
Yeah, but
via the same way that she's doing right now.
Like her brother Aegon, right? I mean, he was good.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. Like you have the choice of picking a leader, and this is like from the view of like say Varys or like the common folk. You have the option of picking a leader who is. They have good intentions. They say and they have done things that match up with what they want to do, but at the same time, they also have said and done things that completely go opposite of that. But they still think that they're one and the same. Or you have this other leader who doesn't want to be leader, but they're really good at being leader, and they have a natural born like tendency for it, and they generally have a good moral compass.
Okay.
Like,
I think it's funny that we keep circling back to basically this same argument.
Yeah.
Something that I think is tied into this and makes this more difficult, because and we mentioned it at the beginning of this episode, that this is the point of contention. This Dany turning or Dany fulfilling her destiny, or whatever you want to call it, right? That so many people disagree with. They disagree with the way that it was handled. They disagree with the way that it does seem like it was interpreted as her snapping, that the writer said it was making her she was making it personal, which adds another layer. And I think that this is all tied up in the want of the characters, or the want of the audience member to see the same goals fulfilled as the want of someone like Tyrion, right? Where we have Dany as a character, but we also have her as like a leader, if you know what I mean. Like,
someone who's larger than herself.
There's a difference between what the character would do and what we as an audience want to happen for the good of the characters in the show. And I think that these sort of things are intertwined. Correct. And it's hard to pull them apart from each other.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, makes this a much harder conversation to really have effectively.
100% exactly what I've been thinking like this past week.
Okay.
And yes.
Okay. So, well, moving on.
Clegane Bowl.
No, motherfucker. Just chill your horses. Chill your white horses.
As much hype as we all have for Clegane Bowl has to wait.
Yeah.
As much as we waited for Clegane Bowl, we can wait a few more minutes to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, as Dany is torching the city, I think what's a cool detail, maybe that is telling as well, is that wildfire caches are blowing up.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love that.
That is a cool detail because her father stored wildfire all throughout the city.
Yes.
And he was always saying, burn them all. And she burned them all for him.
And then she's continuing the sins of her father. I kind of liked that as like, that was her bridging over from being someone wanting to free people to being just another tyrant.
It's poetic, and it could have been done well. Moving on.
I think it was done well.
Again, I need more
So-
time. I need more boiling for the pancake or whatever you do with pancakes.
Okay. Never cook for me. Okay.
Why would you
Yeah, why would I cook for you?
boil?
Why would you boil pancakes is the question.
I don't even know how to cook,
This
and I
way
know
to-
that that's just wrong
Look,
on so many.
You put it in a pan or something. That's boiling, right?
Absolutely. All right, let's keep on going.
Okay,
You're
better
the
yet.
next hot pie.
I want more wine.
Never cook for yourself.
Oh well,
Thank you. Thank you, Shawn.
we certainly.
You're the real MVP.
Okay. So John. Okay.
pull a pod, just fill it up all the way.
Okay. Once.
Hey, is Pot still in Winterfell?
Keep interrupting.
think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So once Danny starts fucking shit up, so does Grey Worm start.
Oh yeah.
And
See,
John
that felt
sees-
believable to me because Grey
Yeah.
Worm has not been in a good emotional state recently.
Oh yeah, no, I could see that. But John sees the madness, and then a brutal fight scene ensues, which is really cool. I liked it a lot. I didn't like how I got there, but I liked it a lot.
I wanted to say one thing. I thought while watching the scene where like John, they all start running and like starting to kill the unarmed Lannister forces. The scene where John was shouting no and like doing nothing. I thought that was a very perfect summary of his character.
This whole
a
season.
No, just his character in whole. Like everybody around him doing exactly the wrong thing while John is trying to do the right thing, and he's the only person doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's been kind of useless this whole season, to be honest.
He feels like a side character.
And I think that's part of like what his character is supposed to be. Like the person doing the exact right and honorable thing is the person who is the least useful in the war.
Okay. War brings out a lot of things, I guess. So, let me see. There was a scene where I thought the kid that Varys was talking to was shown hiding from all the chaos. Did you guys see that or no?
No, I think
It was just a
I think it
similar
was
looking
a
kid.
Just a
different kid.
random.
Okay, I thought it was.
All kids look the
all
same.
kids. Yeah.
They're all equally expendable. Okay, I'm just kidding, by the way. Then you see Davos helping civilians.
Yeah.
You know, that's what John should have been doing from the get-go, I think.
Well, John
he did
was a
save
soldier.
that. Yeah, he did save that lady.
Oh, yeah, like a lot of good that scene was. I don't mean to be so negative. I'm just like,
Yeah,
that
I think a
scene-
lot of it is nitpicky.
yeah, I'm sorry about that. But
I think the problem is that when you have major problems, then the nitpicks become more prevalent.
Yeah, I can see like
You know.
like you ever like see a piece of like thread on the end of your under your shirt, you start picking a
Another
little
metaphor.
bit, and then like you
Go on,
start
Sean.
yeah.
Go on.
And then you just start picking, and then
keep
like
going with the
and then like
negative.
because you picked at it, you think the entire shirt is ruined. Now the whole shirt is ruined for you because you picked at it so much.
Damn, look at what wine does to you, buddy. Okay.
See, I'm waiting for. See, it was my turn, so now it's Yeston's turn for a really long drawn metaphor next. So
Oh, okay, I'll start thinking on
start
it.
brewing on it.
All right.
Okay. Are we at Game Bowl yet? I think we might be.
Wait, let's be thorough here. Let's be thorough. We got. Let's talk about the pre-Clegane Bowl scene where the Arya and and the Hound's goodbye.
The culmination of their character arc. That I thought was done really nice.
Okay, it was nice how they interacted with each other. I hated that Arya just was like, "Okay, you want me to go? Fine."
And that
Fine.
It makes sense.
No.
that's kind of the thing. I felt like Arya, again, I feel like she's just going back and forth between these two things sort of arbitrarily, and it feels like maybe he could have had this conversation with before they went into the castle, right? Something like that.
Maybe it
The
wouldn't have
castle
had-
wasn't being collapsed at that time.
Maybe it wouldn't have had the same effect, but like I feel Arya has had Cersei on her list forever. Like she has said her name over and over, and it just seems unbelievable to me that she would just give up. I mean, she's already there. You know, might as well like keep going. I think she should have killed Cersei and not the Night King. But
See, and to me, here I go. It seems the most believable that Cersei would not be killed by anyone, but just her sheer world and like machinations crumbling literally and figuratively around her.
There was no payoff to me though, because
and that's how the real life is. The bad people die on. I think what was it? Littlefinger said, like on their deathbeds, on their toilets, at their wedding feasts.
Till the very last moment with Jaime and Cersei, I kept thinking like he's gonna turn on her, because I noticed that Theon fights with Theon fights with like a dagger, and I was like, did he take the dagger from Theon and he's gonna stab her or something?
I thought there might have been like at least a mercy kill. Wait, we just skipped Clegane Bowl.
I know.
God damn it.
I know, but it's
the hype that was promised. Okay, this is the one thing that was hyped and was like given
delivered.
and delivered 100%. I think to everybody's satisfaction.
well,
no. Oh, Shawn.
No.
Shawn.
No. Like I love the nitpicking continues.
You're like Bambi in the woods. You're like,
I'm saying
it's
that
all good.
I'm only saying that because I have not heard really any criticism of Clegane Bull. Everybody that I've talked to, even like the most hatred of show haters, like
talk to me.
Most hateful of people. Now, to be clear, I liked Clegane Bull. I thought it was fairly well done. I wish Arya would have been there. I wish that would have been part of the culmination of her arc. But
No,
I did.
don't, but go on.
I think that the
wait, he was finishing. Sorry.
Sorry. I thought.
No, that's
Oh, that's it.
Oh, was it?
Okay.
sort of.
I thought I was gonna say that I thought that the way that the Hound went out was really good.
It was poetic.
Yes, and this is, I think, the one time that it didn't break the feeling that I felt that the rest of the deaths had, even though this one was poetic and the other ones weren't so much.
I could have used less cutting to Arya.
Yeah, that was.
They try to draw this like
Yeah.
parallel between them with the way that the scenes are actually playing out, and that felt like something that just didn't belong. That felt like something that they saw and they were like, "That's cool, we should use that."
Yeah, and I understand why they did it, because like they are connected story wise, but in terms of visualization, and that leads me to a small little side point that I was going to save later, but I think you can probably put in the notes or things around it. But someone made a uninterrupted edit of Clegane Bowl.
Ooh,
that I think that you should probably put in, but it was done by Final Boss TV.
Okay, we'll link it.
Yeah, and it's a really good, really well done. They edit out everything that isn't like just the Clegane Bowl.
I think sometimes to just have a simple fight scene with two characters is much more effective.
And
sorry,
go ahead. Finish.
No. That was, I was going on to a new point.
Oh, I that's how we always do. But and I liked the facts. I liked the chunks that it had. I didn't dislike the fact that it cut between Arya. I did like when it did it rapidly. Like I'm sure you know what I was talking about, where they'd go like from Arya to Arya to Sandor to Arya to Sandor, rather than like show Arya for like a minute or two or three, and then Sandor for like a minute or two or three.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Yestin for once. I'm just kidding. I feel like we've been agreeing too much in this episode. But just the fact that I would have loved to just have seen Clegane Bowl from start to finish uninterrupted. And I think they had the time for it.
Yeah.
I didn't like that Arya was there at all. And at the end of the whole episode, when the writers are talking, which feels more like, what do they have to say for themselves now? You know, like, how are they going to justify their decisions? To me, it does.
I want to say that every time that I have seen the writers talk, they make the poorest choice of words. Even like in the older ones, like when you could tell they had more grasp of the subject because they've studied their material a bit more. I still think that they are not the best interviewees in the slightest.
I guess it makes sense that yeah,
it's probably a creative thing,
Maybe.
like a creative person kind of thing. Like I think there's creatives that don't interview well, and it probably makes them look worse than they.
You know, there's probably the same thing on the other side of the spectrum, but
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and all it takes is one person to say one stupid thing for it to become a meme. Like I forgot.
I mean, I was just saying that there's probably the same problem probably occurs with somebody who isn't creative, and that might be the case here as well.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying that I notice a lot in like people who are creatives, I guess, have a hard time, I guess, exactly what I'm doing right now.
Okay,
conducting their thoughts from their brain into words that accurately convey what they want to say, and sometimes that's hard for people to do.
Can we talk about Arya?
Let's talk about Arya.
So something that I know we just basically dismissed the interviews of the writers, but something that, again, I feel like Arya has been sort of mistreated as a character is that they talk about how they want to show, and they mention it with, you know, when Varys is talking to Tyrion, he's saying like, oh, there are all these people that we don't know their names, but they're just as important, blah, blah, blah. And then they talk about in the recap of this episode, like, we wanted to show the people on the ground that are being affected by the decisions of all these, and they use Arya to show that.
Yes,
but it felt less like that is a natural place for Arya to end up, and more like they just needed a character to fill that role.
100% with that.
Yeah, but so,
if I could add on to that, I really think that they could have done that just as effectively, if not more effectively, by not showing any kind of main character at all for like either say like the last whatever hole that Arya filled in the time slot, or just showing like the chaos.
I thought they could have done that with just the mom and the child, and I thought that's what they were going to do. That they were going to be who we see the chaos through. And going back to the interviews, the mom and child, they get burned to a crisp. Just for the record.
Yes.
Okay. And just going back to the interviews a little bit, I don't think it's fair to say. I think it's more fair to judge them on these interviews because they're not live. They have, I'm pretty sure they have some say over what goes on there. And if it's not what they meant to say, they could have redone it. You know, so it's not like they don't have editorial power over this. It's not like it's live. It's not like they're doing a podcast, you know, where somebody else has control over how they say what they say.
I mean, to some degree, yeah, they could. But...
I mean, you know, recording sessions are always hard to judge, right?
Yeah.
Like if you ever play in a recording session, which I think we all have, I'm guessing, like, you know, there's always things that you say, wow, I could have done that phrase better or something. But
or
like,
even differently, not just better.
But like, we got a time limit. We got to get all these done. There's like people relying on you. So I'm always, you know, and again, I was just attacking them, right, for the things that they said. But I am willing to exercise some degree of restraint in the judgment on these recordings, because I know that even if technically, yes, it isn't live, like there can be some major constraints there that can be sort of restricting the way that they are portrayed.
I don't think we should dismiss it as well, what I'm saying.
And I was going to say, sometimes it's hard to... Because every one of these interviews is based off of one episode, and sometimes it's hard to contain your thoughts, I would imagine, on some of the larger arcs, I guess, that they could, rather than... I imagine it's harder to talk about those larger scale forms in these interviews where they're meant to be talking about, they're dissecting each and every scene, kind of.
It just seems like these interviews, they come off as careless as they're writing to me, because I'll give one example that just it's the only example that I can come up with now, but I could probably dig up more, and that is when they talk about the long night, how they're saying, oh yeah, we shot this scene with the Dothraki where you basically see the end of the Dothraki as they get extinguished. And then in the very next episode, only half of them are dead or whatever. It's just...
Well, they say basically. Like
you essentially see the end of the Dothraki is what they said. Or something like that. The end of the Dothraki.
Yeah. And again, there are things that they say that are pretty stupid sometimes and like that easily come to bite them in the ass. Like
it's a pretty major plot point though, like whether or not they live or die, because
and yeah, I really wish...
Let me finish that really quick because I say it's a major plot point because Dany seeing all her Dothraki people getting extinguished, or as we thought, dying, is kind of what drove her to leave her perch. That is something that affected her decision to do something more than just stand around. And I think I just think it's just very careless of them to not know what they're saying versus what they actually wrote.
And then they need the Dothraki in this episode because they are a representation of what Dany was. And so when she turns and she starts burning the city, they're right with her. And so I feel like they're part of that. So
maybe I didn't think that much, but I could see that too.
But I'm just saying, I think that's why they specifically wanted the Dothraki in this episode. I know. So.
Like you said, the price to pay for cool.
Yeah.
and the price to pay for making stupid comments in interviews.
Oh, I will judge him for that forever.
Oh yeah. And we should obviously, but I don't think it's fair to judge the entire everything on one or two few stupid comments.
Yeah. Did we talk about Game Bowl? I feel like this is a very...
This is a very unorganized podcast.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of things to unload. It's
We've been recording for 2.5 hours now.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I just want to mention with Arya how I feel like she's being sort of misused and she's sort of all over the place. I even said the same thing. I think it was episode 1 or episode 2 about the way they use Sam, how he finds out that his dad is dead, and then he finds out that his brother is dead, and then he runs out and he runs into Bran, and then he fills a different character purpose where he's talking to Bran, which is setting up the arrival of Jaime, and then later in the episode he's talking to Jon, which is setting up this whole plot line about Jon being the heir to the throne. And it felt like his character was inconsistent in that. He would not have reacted that way, and they just kind of needed him to fill specific roles. And I think the same thing is true of Arya, and I feel like that is kind of how I feel about the writing on a base level. Those are just two examples of the way that things don't really flow together. It's just they need to accomplish certain things, so they're doing whatever they can to get those things to come to fruition.
To bring it back to an arranging composing metaphor, it's like you're giving a very you're giving a piano part, if you're transposing from piano to string quartet, and you're giving a very piano line to a violin that doesn't have the same range and is not fitting for that line. It's just kind of how I see that too.
I kind of see it as it being a product of the, like I said, the constraints. George R. R. Martin told him that this is what Sam does and why to serve this purpose, and then he does this and this, and they couldn't find a way, or weren't able to find a way that made it feel like the cadence would when George writes it, or will write it, or has write it, or has already edited it, or whatever.
And again, I think part of that is just having more time, right?
Yeah.
Having more events. But I do think that that is a fundamental flaw, and that is why people are reacting so negatively to a lot of this, is because there's just not enough cushion time between all of the things that happen.
All right. But I think to answer your question, I think we did we did go through Clegane Bowl. It's just
not very.
There's not as cool as it was, and as awesome as a scene it was, and as much as we dislike it, there wasn't much to talk about.
We actually
other than
talked about it fairly extensively.
Well,
in reference to Arya,
I thought it was it was beautifully shot. I thought it was really cool how they were. You could see the chaos in the background in the sky.
There are some great scenes, like some great shots, single shots when she's burning the city. You have the one of Clegane Bolt where it's looking up the stairs at them and she's flying in the background. And then you have some shots of the people in the city that look like a very Renaissance painting kind of structure. And like that's very cool. There's the shot of the camera guy. That I thought was quite funny.
Where was that?
I
missed that one.
Yeah, there's one shot where it like pans over a street corner and you can see a camera guy in the bottom of the frame.
That's funny.
At least that didn't become the next Starbucks cup.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Shit. What were you just talking about? Shit. The how great it looked in some of the shots. Yeah, I can't wait to see all the awards that this is going to win.
For cinematography.
And probably other things too that'll make people mad.
Well,
it'll make
music,
Peter Dinklage mad.
Cinematography. What else is there? Really? I'm just kidding, Sean.
Music, cinematography, special effects.
I
That's
feel
what
like
I would assign awards for.
I feel like it's also one of those things that like that because it was done so big and so well enough. That it's kind of hard to not like you have so many good people working on it that it's kind of hard to not get awards for it.
I mean, you throw enough money at something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's true. Like you see every year like Oscar bait movies and some of these things. I don't think this is Oscar bait, but I think it's like one of those things like how Breaking Bad won every award after its finale. I think it's going to be kind of Game of Thrones doing that because it's one of those bigger series.
Maybe. I hope some of these petitions to redo the ending of Game of Thrones gain traction.
I hope they don't because they're childish and immature.
Again, God. 50 years later, Game of Thrones, Brotherhood. Yeah. That's my vote.
They'll probably call it like A Song of Ice and Fire or something like that.
That'd be cool.
I'd like to watch A Song of Ice and Fire in like 25, 50 years. But.
I know this is the most unorganized episode, but I would also like to point out that like this season is being judged maybe more harshly than other seasons.
Absolutely.
That the whole Sand Snakes arc is just so boring. And that probably wasn't considered as harshly as everything else, just because this is the finale that people have been waiting for
and headcanoning and like creating these crazy, complex, harebrained theories that have like so many parts that play into every tiny detail that's ever been written.
Episodes 1 through 3 of this podcast about these theories.
I know, and then like, but no, like George R. R. Martin has said even before that, like the very end like has been like foreshadowed within the first book essentially.
Bran sits on the Iron Throne and his eyes turn blue.
Okay guys, let's move on.
We gotta get to the end of this episode.
I think we mostly have though. Like there's Clegane. Oh no, there is the deaths of Jaime and Cersei.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's pretty much like the last major thing because we've talked more or less about Arya and Arya's role to play, I guess, in this episode.
Well, I mean, technically the deaths happened before, but since we're on Arya, do you think she'll kill Daenerys?
I don't think so. I think that's gonna. Well, that we can talk about predictions afterwards.
Okay.
But let's talk about Jaime and Cersei's final moments.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you were gonna bring this up, but Jaime once talked to Bronn about the way he wished he'd die, and it was in the arms of the woman he loved. And
people thought it would be Brienne, but it's always been Cersei.
Yeah, I guess if you like circles.
But see, and that's the thing. I think we're thinking of it in wrong in like the wrong mindset when we shouldn't be thinking of like circles or arcs, but more or less like result of the circumstances that people have been through.
What I got from Jaime and Cersei dying like that is that Tyrion is useless. And that he has been. I mean, of course, I've known he has been, but there's just nothing that's going to redeem him. Like, nothing that's going to put him back to his former glory.
Yeah, probably not.
Which is really, really sad because they butchered the character, in my opinion.
See, I don't know. Like, I hear everyone talking. They butchered this guy's character. They butchered this guy's character, and I don't think so. And I think that, like, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times I see, like, when people say, "Oh, they're butchering your character," meaning they're not getting a happy ending. Like, and
No, I don't think so.
You know, I don't care that if Tyrion. Well, I mean, I do care, but like, if Tyrion dies, or if he makes wrong decisions, or if he makes decisions that are perceived as like negative or something like that, I'm okay with that. But something about him feels like he's just stupider now.
see, to
And
me,
he's ineffective.
okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, you know,
No,
I have been conflicted though, because I feel like he is a character that has been taken out of his comfort zone.
yes,
And
one that was
this
what I
is
was gonna say next.
this is specifically shown when he does try to deal with the situation in Marine, and it just totally fails. And Dany's methods of burning ships is what works, and that's what's working now. We'll see. You know, but I still feel like that change in scenario for him is accompanied by a general lack of, like, I don't know, feeling about the character, and it's hard for me to really put into words what I mean, but it feels like, you know, you look at Tyrion from a few seasons ago and he just felt so different, and it makes sense that he would be in a different position now. I've even noticed this about like this tone of voice when you listen to like Peter Dinklage's delivery in the first few seasons. It's so settled, right? It's so settled and simple, and he's delivering these very complicated lines, and now it's like overly emotive and emotional,
like
and
his character,
I know, and I have been conflicted
because of the situations that he's been in.
Yes, but I feel like there's something lost. And again, this is what I cannot put into words effectively. There's something lost about the fundamental nature of the character, even if he's in a different in a different situation. I still feel like there's something that we are missing about his fundamental personality.
See, to me, I think you hit it like head on the nail, like with him being out of his element, because I think that we see essentially 3 different Tyrions over the span of the series. Tyrion 1, which is the Tyrion we all remember and love, like the Tyrion who's like sleeping with whores and like drinking wine.
Yeah, sleeping with wine.
Shawn drinks a drink of
horse.
Yeah, sleeping with wine, drinking with whores, and altogether being a smart guy who knows exactly. He's spent his entire life looking down upon everyone around him and watching what they do.
Now he can look down at the rest of the Lannisters because he's the tallest Lannister, right?
Yeah. But you see him in these first few seasons, up until at least I would say 2.5, because in the middle of season 3 is when he starts to change into Tyrion 2. But Tyrion 1 is like when he knows he's in his element. He's around people, the types of people that he's watched all of his life, and he knows pretty much how they're going to act. And so he uses that to his advantage to pretty much rule the city of King's Landing pretty goddamn well effectively.
Yeah.
But then you see Tyrion 2 out of his element. He's out of his position of power. He has only his mind and what he's learned. And then he's put into this position of power eventually in Marine. He knows the element of like people in a city per se, but these are still foreign people to him. And he does a manageable job, and you see that like now he's out of his comfort zone. He does a job. It's a bandage, but it's by no means like fixing the problem.
Yeah.
And then the problem, like you said, Daenerys comes in and she solves her problem with fire and blood, reinforcing in her mind that fire and blood is the way you win things when your advisors can't win the war for you without bloodshed. then you see as this transition, as Daenerys takes over power and she cleans up everything in the East, you start to see Tyrion 3, who is Tyrion who's dealing with things he's never had to deal with before. He's never had to deal with the intricacies of like multi-state diplomacy and war diplomacy and strategy, other than like the battle where he kind of wanted to do things with the clan, with the defense of King's Landing, which, to be fair, the show played down his role in the end of season 2. But I mean, he's out of his biggest element here in all of his elements. So when you've left what's left him, or when you've stripped what's made him the most defining parts of him, you see what's left of him, which is his desire to try and make the world a better place, even if he doesn't know how, and his love for his family, even though it's like his ultimate undoing. And I think that this love of his family that we have seen like throughout every season, Tyrion has always thought the best of both Jaime and Cersei. And even until like the last couple lines, his father, he's always thought there's something better in them, until he's kind of forced to realize that there isn't. And this time he doesn't get a chance to realize that he's made a mistake before he's made the mistake and seen the consequences. This time he's just made the mistake, and he doesn't get to explain himself. And I think this is where ultimately his character, like every other character on the show of Game of Thrones, has died because of what like defines them: his will to do good and his will of belief in his family to ultimately do good, and that's his biggest downfall.
It just feels like...
Sorry, it just felt like I'd been talking for like 8 minutes there.
No, man, that was a lecture, Shawn.
Look, okay, this has kind of reframed things for me. And now I think that if you take a fish out of water, it should die.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should not become the queen's hand and then die. I feel like he should have died now after he shot his father. And that would have been a more satisfying end than watching this guy.
See, but I don't think he had gone completely out of his element, and I don't think he had.
But he was about to.
Dude,
Yeah.
the fish is like halfway submerged in water.
Yeah.
One side of its gills is good, but the other side isn't. So you slowly watch half the fish rot. But the fish that's still submerged should still be there, and I feel like that fish isn't there, which is my problem with the character.
See, but I feel like that fish has been there, and it's just like, I think it's not a sense of like the fish rotting away. It's just that like the fish was covered in too many layers, and now this metaphor just got.
It's not an onion, Shawn. It's a fish. It's not an ogre.
Okay.
Now that we've destroyed our points,
What
with
is
poor
this
man.
podcast?
The music was
Drinking,
on
that's what
fire.
it is. Oh my god, the fucking music this episode.
Light of the
sorry.
Seven plus Reigns of Castamere
100
being mixed together. That worked amazingly. I wish I had thought of that.
I know, and I really liked the not just before when Jaime and Cersei died, but before the battle even started, when it was kind of some of the music that they were playing before big shit happened. There's a sense that there's a scene earlier before Jaime and Cersei's death where he used piano and the theme that he used in The Light of the Seven, and it gives you that sense of unease that something's about to happen before it even happens. Like, that was when I started to feel uneasy about Daenerys on her dragon, and like when I started to feel uneasy about like Cersei's position right now. I was like, what's gonna happen? Like, something's about to happen. And I think he did that so well. And then when later on, when he adds also the Reigns of Castamere to that same melody,
it's very fitting because Cersei killed everyone at the Sept of Baelor, and that music was playing. And then when she meets her demise, the Lannister song, the Reigns of Castamere, being mixed with
the explosion
music, I guess is what you could call it, is very, although
it kind of becomes its own motif almost.
Would have been so good if she got burned alive to that song. I didn't like that she died of building, but it's all good. Let's just move on because like this is getting super drawn out.
All right. So
what's up?
Do we want to actually talk about their death though? Like,
I didn't like it. I'm sorry. I didn't like a lot of things. I'm just a negative boy today. As far as talking about their death though, I mean, I guess what we could say is whether or not we thought it was fitting or not. I didn't. I thought there's...
No, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
I just thought there should have been some kind of payoff to Cersei being this character that was built up over 10 years and just dying like that. I mean, she got a way more romantic death than Dany's going to get.
I hate to keep drawing this comparison, but in Avatar, when Azula realizes that she is losing control.
Wait, is this before or after they decide to blow up the giant tree with gold under it?
What? This is the last.
Wrong.
This is like the Jesus. This is like the last episode. Azula realizes that she's losing control and she like goes crazy, and then she has this final battle that has been building up for the whole show, but she is like
unhinged.
Yeah, she's unhinged, and that's what I thought they were kind of going to do with Cersei, and they do it to an extent. It just feels kind of limited to me.
See, and this I think is one of the things that could have benefited from them showing the exact weaknesses and strength of Cersei's position, because I think they didn't do as good of a job as they could have in showing Cersei's side, because we're kind of led to believe, at least from what they'd shown us so far, that Cersei has a much better position than Daenerys has.
There's a bug.
It was slow moving. What?
Just grabbed a bug.
John.
Go on, sorry.
It just seems to me that we could have seen a bit more evidence or been shown the evidence that Cersei was on a bit more equal terms with Daenerys in terms of army strength, because we're kind of led to believe by, not necessarily, we're not lied to, we're just only shown one side. And when we're only shown one side and not both sides, I understand why people would call subverting expectations or whatever, or plot armor or that kind of thing.
All those things exist.
Plot armor, I will agree with, because there's a shit ton of scorpions. But in terms of like, when they could show things that I'm sure are better described internally or within the thoughts of someone, that's when it becomes an issue. And I can very easily see why that would be called. But in terms of, back to what we were talking about, their death and Jaime and Cersei, the way they go out, I think the way that I see it's pretty fitting of they go out pretty much the way, or their biggest weakness. Jaime's biggest weakness has always been his devotion to this woman who has been terrible, not just to him, but like just terrible in general. But he's been with her his entire life. They're all they know.
I like the poetry of they came into this world together and they'll leave together.
Yeah.
That's the only part about it that I liked.
And I
could have done without it.
And then Cersei's death isn't because of Jaime, because Jaime's death is very much, I would say, because of Cersei. If you want to look at it, obviously he chose to be that way, or he chose to be with her, but he did not choose to be, I guess, not enslaved, but I guess in love with Cersei. He didn't choose that. That's just what his life was.
Okay.
And he could only choose that. And Cersei's death is literally her world and her machinations crumbling around her, which is pretty much what has defined Cersei. Like her only caring about herself, her children, which in this case is the one that is unborn within her, and trying to further herself and her children in the world, and to a lesser extent her family, because we very clearly see that unlike her father, her main focus is her children, not necessarily her family as a whole, but just her and her offspring kind of thing.
You're very feverishly defending this episode, Shawn. I like your optimism.
Well, because I think that there's a lot of arguments that are almost non-arguments. Not that you guys put many of them. I think a lot of you two are very eloquent and very good at defending your points with
He's softening the blow.
No.
He's setting us up so he can knock us down.
I think that there are very bad arguments there are very bad supporting statements for very good arguments against the episode. And I think you guys are making the good arguments against the episode.
Okay. All right. We have to move on, though.
Yes, we do.
This episode is getting very long.
And there's only so much wine.
Here's
we
the
can
thing.
drink.
Something about this episode has brought out like a philosophical debate about the nature of running a show like this.
Oh, no, continue.
That's it.
I know.
just that we're barely talking about the episode. We're more talking about like what the episode represents.
And you know what I think that is telling of? I think that means that the fact that everyone is so philosophically torn about this show and this story, I think only proves to cement that this story will probably go among the pillars of fantasy literature alongside Lord of the Rings. I would easily say that this... I should add that both adaptation and literature, because I would say that this is a very good adaptation of the show or the books that we have as of now, and I think they've done a very great job of bringing the cinematic world to a pretty believable level. And obviously, you can't compare Game of Thrones with any other show, just like you can't compare like Lord of the Rings with any other movie or any other genre or any other property.
Okay.
Just like you can't compare Lord of the Rings with Star Wars or like Star Wars.
We still have after credits commentary.
I know. But I'm saying that the fact that we're having these philosophical discussions on what it means, not just like questioning human nature and like kind of human behavior. I think that's what a good piece of fiction should do.
I think that's what good conversation brings out. Let's move on.
Okay, what else do we have? What other events?
Okay.
Cersei dies, Jamie dies.
No,
we've
pretty
covered
much
this.
it.
The
Yeah.
Yes,
story.
I know. What else?
The after credits commentary, I think, should be touched on, just because we have talked about it.
Oh, I don't
So-
remember that. And I only
But I
want to
talk about Arya and the horse.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, I want to hear his thoughts on Arya and the horse.
Arya says to the Hound that she's going to King's Landing to kill the queen, and she didn't kill Cersei, and now there's a new queen. So Arya's killing Dany.
Okay, so now she killed ice. Now she's gonna kill fire. Great, let's move on.
The Song of Ice and Fire. It's all Arya.
We'll get in predictions in a second.
Okay. So the writers are willing to justify Dany going mad by calling back to Drogo killing Viserys, and her reaction, I think that's bull.
Well, it's not just
Time
the
limit,
killing.
time limit.
Yeah, it's not just the killing of Viserys. It's the watching every single one of her trusted people die. Meaning
They
Missandei.
specifically brought that up, though. That's what I'm talking about, though. That they specifically said that we've seen this happening since her reaction to her brother being killed by Drogo.
He was not a real dragon.
Exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Drogon, not
No.
Drogo. But no,
So when Khal Drogo killed her brother, they brought that up in the commentary. They said that this has been foreshadowed. I thought that was cheap. They said this has been foreshadowed since way back then. By her reaction, like how she just had no reaction, apparently.
I think the way they choose to describe it and the words they pin on it are incorrect, but I think her overall, the way that she looks at that situation, I do believe leads to her looking at this situation in similar ways. Because she feels that death... She is someone who feels that death is necessary to bring about it seems, this at least is what she's being painted as. It seems like she's being painted as someone who views death not only as something that happens when change happens, but something necessary for change to happen. And I think that is the biggest sticking point of her character. Not so much that I don't think that she enjoys causing death to innocents, more so that she believes that the death or deaths is necessary to bring about meaningful change.
I think we spun a little bit, Shawn, because it was just in this one particular point. I was just saying that I think they're giving themselves too much credit, or they're saying that they adapted it a little bit better than I think they did. I think they're kind of defending themselves by calling back to that as saying it has been basically foreshadowed the entire time.
And I think it has, and I think that is exactly. I think that scene that they reference is exactly a scene that points to that point, even if they use poor words to describe it.
Well, I disagree because of the context, just because she was defending her and her unborn child from Viserys, who was going to kill her. And
Viserys was terrible.
Yeah, and
sucked.
it's nothing like killing innocent civilians. We could just leave it there, because we have actually pretty much touched on everything else I have written down about the after credits commentary, and I'm not just kidding. I'm not just saying that to move on, because I was just reading that. The last thing I have here that we didn't touch on is that they say Missandei and Cersei weird. They say Missandei and Cersei. What the fuck?
I mean, everybody I have spoken to who watches this show.
It's pronounced.
It's regional. I've seen.
It's pronounced me Sunday, like your ice cream that is melting on the ground. Predictions.
Okay, predictions.
All right.
So I put here. This was before talking, obviously, but I put maybe Arya will kill Dany with Jon's face, because the waif was shown wearing Arya's face, so the person doesn't necessarily need to be dead. It's not a really serious prediction. There are leaks that I read that I will not mention, and this is not based off of those leaks, but they're out there.
So
all the leaks have been correct.
Yes, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. The leaks have been correct so far, but I also remember reading that they filmed multiple endings.
Okay, I just wonder how much they can divert.
And that's what I wonder. I wonder, like, how much of these end leaks are true and how much... and it makes me wonder, because they only said that they made multiple endings to trick people who would... I mean, there's obviously only one real ending.
But what if there's not? What if different regions of HBO Go users get different endings?
I think that's a rabbit hole that we should not even talk about unless we want another 2 hours.
The Clue movie where each state had a different ending, and so no one knew what the ending was. No one who
I don't think that's a thought we should entertain unless it happens. I think that would be just...
Okay. Other predictions.
My predict. Well, no, I'm saying that they did say that they filmed multiple endings. Whether or not some of them specifically to throw off people who either like data mine or like or data mine, like I'm talking about a video game or something. Who people who like get those like shots of like things filming off in the distance or that kind of shit. I'm wondering how much of those, or I'm wondering if they did it. Oh, like this entire ending is just wrong or hogwash, or this one part, or I'm interested to see. But predictions, yes, that's all I wanted to say about the.
There's something about a horse prophecy.
No, prophecies don't mean shit in this version of the ending of Game of Thrones.
Well, no, I think that's a little. It's a little in between that. The thing about prophecy has always been that like prophecy. They say, I think either in one of the earlier episodes, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe it was in the books. But they say that prophecy is like. I now the more I'm thinking about this quote, I think it's only in the books. But there's a scene essentially while Sam is in Old Town, he meets and works with a maester that is implied that the maester has discovered some of the secrets or workings of the way that magic works.
Okay.
And this maester says a quote along the lines that of prophecy being kind of like a double-edged sword, like the things that we think it means can be completely off. Once again, I'm butchering this quote, but if I remember, the gist of it is that you can't completely trust prophecies due to the nature of the way that they've been passed down and just the nature of prophecies in general.
Okay.
And that's something that I think we have continued to see as the ending point, as the ending pan.
Asleep.
No.
You did.
I did not. I only mentioned the horse prophecy because there's this big scene with Arya and the horse.
Yes.
Which to me represented Arya turning away from the faceless man and the assassin that she has become to become something more normal, because before she's riding a black horse with the hound, and now she's taming this white horse and she's riding out of the kingdom.
Too deep for Dumb and Dumber.
But again,
D&D, but
go on. Sorry.
No, that's
and you know, that's what I was thinking it represented. Do you like my short hands?
No. Justin,
What?
get to your point.
Jeez, you guys keep interrupting me. But again, she said she was gonna kill the queen in King's Landing, and Arya will do what she says because she's a woman of action. And I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, on the one hand, I feel like they have given her a send off, but on the other hand, I feel like it is foreshadowed that she will kill Cersei.
Danny.
See,
It's been a long night. The queen. Exactly. It's just a position. It's just a symbol of power. Arya's going to start the first democracy in Westeros.
Yeah, she's going to break the wheel.
See, and I've always thought that a lot of those times that when they've done those kind of prophecy / false prophecy, like, is this a prophecy? Is this not a prophecy? Like, some of these lines, like, for example, in season 4 or season 5, sorry, before the end, when Sam says what?
I just can't.
What?
I just can't anymore.
Archer has been trying to get us to finish this podcast for like the past half an hour, and you and I just keep going off on things. Look, I'm sorry, Shawn, but we're gonna have to talk about prophecies another day.
Too goddamn bad.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
You're the one who said you want to do this 10:30 goddamn night. Let me finish my point and we'll get done quicker. Okay. So, I wonder, it makes me wonder if because a lot of these prophecies / half prophecies / not prophecies have been thrown out in the hopes of like throwaway, almost kind of like, you don't know what is prophecy and what essentially isn't. And I think that might have been one of those lines that the Cersei is going to kill the queen. That it could be one of those where it could be completely correct, or it could be. Did I say Cersei will kill the queen?
But we're going to let it slide. We're all getting
Arya will
names
kill the
mixed up.
queen, and
Just you.
and it could be one of
And
those.
him.
It could be one of those lines where it was like where Sam said, "Oh, don't worry, Jon always comes back" to Ollie back in season 5, or it could be one of those just throwaway things where. It's not exactly what happens. It's the difference between what characters want to happen and what they aspire to have happen and what actually happens.
Okay.
And as far as predictions, since that's what this originally was, I honestly don't have any predictions for Arya. No, that's my prediction. I can't predict. For a lot of these characters, I have some idea or I have some preconceived idea.
I still think John's going to stab Dany.
I think that's going to happen. I think, we finished Arya. We don't need to predict Jaime and Cersei. That's obvious. What big predictions?
Cersei's baby Cersei will give birth to the new Night King. That's what'll happen.
I wanted to say, I think it would have been a funny, non-serious. I think it would have been cool if like the last shot of the entire Game of Thrones is just the mountain's hand like coming up from the rubble.
Like Game Bowl Part 2.
Oh my god.
But predictions, Jon Snow and Daenerys. Let's start with Jon Snow. We heard yours and ours is the same. So
Jon Snow, I got leaked, so I can't anymore. I'm sorry. I have been spoiled.
You got leaked.
Well, my prediction from the
That sounds
beginning.
like a disease.
My prediction from the beginning is that Jon Snow
Like
kills
episode
Daenerys.
1 beginning?
Not beginning, but like since rationally you were able to put like I figured that this is kind of one of the things alongside Jon being the secret heir to the throne. I think I've considered this like one of the big things that the story is pointed to from the beginning is Daenerys being just as fire happy as her father, even if it was for different reasons.
Okay.
But Daenerys predictions. What do you think is going to happen to Daenerys? Because we kind of have like the same belief, don't we?
I mean, on the one hand, I think it would be cool if Jon stabbed her and killed her. But on the other hand, like, there's a whole dragon to deal with. Like, I'm very curious to see how they end this now. Because the way that this is built up, I just have no idea really what will happen. There's, again, on my list of things that were built up that didn't come to pass was Varys writing letters about Jon being the rightful heir, but maybe that will have a place. It just feels like with one episode, there's not going to be a lot that they can do with that. So
yeah,
on the other hand, I think what is more realistic is that Daenerys will take over. And it will be implied that her reign will end at some point, like the Mad Kings did. But maybe it won't be depicted. Or what if there's a time jump? I don't know.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah. What was your prediction for Daenerys?
I can't. I got leaked.
Well,
I can't.
Don't leak me, bro.
I know. I'll stop. Because
I don't
that's the
wanna-
thing.
See those things. See, but I've also been leaked, and I see that's the thing. I've been operating at least off the assumption that the leaks aren't true, and even though the fact that the leaks so far have been true to what I have read, for the most part, there are a few things that I read on the approved leaks, or I guess the proven leaks, that I have found that weren't true, but.
I used to fantasize about the show.
Ooh.
Yeah, that sounds sexual, and I guess it kind of was sometimes.
Back in the old days, there were more boobs.
Back in the day.
No.
Back in the days of sexplanation, as they called it.
Okay, let me talk. I used to just think about what might happen and what the possibilities could be, but I know that it's not you, Shawn, but I've been I've been really disappointed, and I no longer operate from that point. So I don't I don't care enough to think about what could happen because I just don't care about the outcome anymore. I'm in it for the memes. Let's get to off the throne.
Well, I want to talk about it because that's not everything. That's not all of
Jesus, Shawn,
No,
you don't realize there's a whole editing process here.
I understand, but do we want to have a good show or not? Do we want to talk about everything?
Okay.
Like I said, you're gonna have a better.
Just because it's longer doesn't mean it's better.
I know.
Okay, sometimes it hurts.
That-
It's about the shape.
All right,
the way
all
the force
we
is
have
applied.
is the journey.
All right. So we need to make predictions. We're trying to make predictions for the end of Game of Thrones, not just the next episode. Like the end of Game of Thrones are our predictions. Does anyone want to start? Or?
Danny will rule. Danny will be the ruler, and that will be what happens, and it will be implied that her rule will be challenged, but she will not actually die. I would like Jon to kill her. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. My prediction is that I think Jon is going to reluctantly kill Daenerys, and I believe that this is something that has been almost foreshadowed for most of the series. I think Tyrion will probably die, and I think really that the rest of the world is going to be in the hands of pretty much the secondary characters. And
Explain that.
meaning Davos, Sam, like the people who, because if you think about it, most of the quote unquote main characters of the show are dead.
Yeah.
It's now a lot of the supporting roles like Davos and Jon and all the people that I'm just blanking out right now because Sansa arguably is a main character. I will
Sansa's
say
totally a main character.
Yeah, and Arya.
Do you think she's going to have...
I want to say the past two episodes have or the past episode, I guess, made me forget about Sansa. I forgot.
You forgot about Sansa.
like the meat. Like I said,
Yeah,
the
you
memes
kinda
just
forgot
keep
about
on
Sansa.
giving.
Sansa's gonna roll in with a Deus Ex Machina army like she did in
Army
the
of
old
dire
days.
wolves. She steals Nymeria, and then she just comes down with her army of dire wolves that kill Drogon while they're on the ground and swarm him just like the end.
No, while he's flying.
Yeah, they leap up. But yeah, that's my prediction for the Game of Thrones. I think we're going to be left mostly in the hands of the quote-unquote secondary characters, and it's going to be a bittersweet ending in that, like, the quote-unquote good guys, the people we were rooting for the entire time, I think they're going to be dead. But I think that the world will be better off for it.
Yeah,
And I'm sure my prediction is completely wrong, and I cannot wait to see how wrong I am next week.
like Varys.
Varys.
I do not predict satisfaction.
Oh, no matter what happens, there will not be satisfaction. That is the one thing I will put money on.
Yeah.
There will not be satisfaction.
I think people, for the most part, were satisfied with Breaking Bad's ending. It stayed true to the series. I don't think this has stayed true to the series.
See, I think it has, and I think that the limitations placed on it are the biggest things that are holding it back.
Okay.
I still think that, like I said, and to be fair, that is a general statement. You could make that almost of any adaptation. You could say that about Lord of the Rings. You could say that about like Hunger Games. You could say that about.
Keep listening them shut.
Sorry, that's why I paused.
All right.
And that's the show. Good night,
Shawn, off the throne.
Let's get to Off the Throne.
All right.
Okay, Shawn, you said you already know what to recommend.
My Off the Throne is similar to, I think, what I said, I think is the first week. It's more or less the same ensemble, same kind of video. It is called Epic Low Brass, The Reigns of Castamere Game of Thrones. It's a cover similar to the one I gave a shout out to the first week. This one is more similar. It's a bunch of trombones, tenor trombones, bass trombones, contrabass trombones, tuba, bass, contrabass, tuba, playing a medley of the Rains of Castamere. And this it's a more darker Rains of Castamere, so it's more up to date, I guess. It's not like the old sing-songy one. And interesting tidbit about this, one of the performers in this video, Joe Alessi, who is the principal trombonist of the New York Phil and arguably one of the greatest living solo trombone players in the world, I actually got to play with him a couple weeks ago. He was we recorded an album with him as well as we did a concert with him a couple months back, but real great guy, and fun to work with him, and cool to see that the music world is as big as it is. It's also kind of small.
Oh, yeah.
I like that a lot.
Off the throne.
Okay, so there was an article that I meant to read earlier today so that I could talk more educationally about it, because I have no idea if it's actually good or not. It's from Classic FM. I don't know what people think of that Facebook page. It's called Requiem for a Queen, and it is an analysis of the music within this episode, and how it pertains to Cersei's character arc and the completion of her arc.
All right, I wanted to add, this is that just got me thinking that I really can't wait. This is along the lines of what I said earlier, when people are going to do these like crazy analysis of this show after it's been done, long gone. I can't wait for the analysis of the music and the motifs that have been used throughout the series and the way that they grow.
It's gonna be really good.
Absolutely. Arturo, what is your Off the Thrones?
My Off the Throne is a video by a channel called Anomaly Inc. And it is titled Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 5 is Proof D&D are the worst writers in history.
All right, so I'm going to give a real video instead of...
Hold up, Shawn. Hold up. No, are you serious? You can't interrupt this. Okay.
I mean, I will, only because it's just basic pandering.
It's not, though. It's 40 minutes of really good points that he makes. And yes, he is very upset, and he is the one that got me calling D&D Dumb and Dumber.
And I will not respect that.
All right, but
respectfully, I will not give any respect to anyone who just treats an artist like that, just because they think it's not good.
There's a lot of credence to what he says, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not hearing out this argument.
I mean, I would gladly hear his arguments if it weren't just if it were titled something differently, and I'll state that clearly, like. If you need to draw your audience by claiming or discrediting the work of someone else, then I really don't care about it.
Something I wanted to mention earlier is that with more sort of maybe high profile or important game releases, something that always happens is you have these reviews coming out that are, either positive or negative or whatever the general consensus of the public is. And then a few months later, you have video essays come out about that game, and they're analyzing more in depth from a more sort of objective standpoint. Because I do agree that with channels like this, that there is a sort of, you are pulling an audience that has decided to hate whatever happens.
100%.
And not that I do not disagree with the points necessarily, but I do think that is a really powerful element of what makes these videos popular, is that they're pulling in a specific
it's a
audience.
knee jerk. It's kind of like how as soon as Fortnite blew up, like everyone, regardless of whether or not you really thought Fortnite was a good game, like everyone was playing Fortnite because that's what's getting you views on Twitch. That's what's getting you money.
Okay, what's getting D&D views and what they think is making the show popular is all these awful subversions and shock factors.
And to me, that viewpoint is something that's birthed from this toxicity, this race to the bottom of hyperbole with it, that's kind of grown within this fandom that I've seen.
I think it's fair to counteract what people perceive as ruining a show by doing those kind of shock factors with these videos.
Oh, no,
because it's cathartic. I get so much more satisfaction watching these videos than watching the show, and that is what's messing me up about it. And I think some people will get enjoyment out of that, and that is what I am recommending. I'm recommending the show because he does make some good points, and it's not just hating on it.
See, but the fact that you have to draw someone by calling them bad writers, that kind of thing, I completely disagree with that. I don't think this is bad writing. I think it has its flaws, and don't get me wrong. I mean, every artistic piece of work has its flaws, and every adaptation has its flaws. But I think to call their writing bad is just not wrong in the sense that you shouldn't do it. Just wrong in the sense of both that you shouldn't do it, and just wrong in the sense that like it's completely wrong. It's discrediting, like it's calling a I need to throw in one more crazy metaphor. It's calling a hole I don't even know how it's calling a circle a hole for its outline, and I don't even know if that's it's probably the worst metaphor that I've ever pulled out of my ass, but it's kind of essentially making a mountain a molehill of the legitimate detractions that there are to this. And
here's the thing: this guy isn't crapping on everything that went into Game of Thrones. He specifically says that the set production was great, the music is great, the actors are doing a phenomenal job, but all of these great things are just detrimented by the writing itself. And I think it is fair to criticize the writing. I don't care if it's got clickbait articles. Clickbait is a part of our culture now. I think it's a form of clickbait to show all these just flashy battle scenes when there's no real meat to them. There's no substance to them. The one-sided pile of shit that was the Daenerys taking King's Landing.
See, and I don't think it was a one-sided pile of shit. And I think the fact that you just called it a one-sided pile of shit is kind of testimony to what has happened to the language that we've used to describe the way we dislike something.
You're also kind of like dismissing my viewpoints by saying that it is all derived from this kind of culture. And
I was thinking about and this is really, really meta, above all of Game of Thrones and above all of everything. This gets into like society, and now we've tangented. We are no longer in the Game of Thrones podcast. I have merged you all into the other podcast that you do, the Memorycast. Congratulations. We're now here. It's 2 a.m. We're talking about society and philosophy. I think a lot of this comes from you see this a lot when people don't really care about the point that's being made, more so the way that people are saying it. And if you look at the way that people talk and discuss things like politics, shows, like differing opinions on Reddit and the internet nowadays, this is all too common. And the fact where like they don't really talk about the points that they're making, instead it kind of goes more so into the way that they're saying it and the language they're using to describe the way that they feel about these things. And when both sides kind of have such opposite viewpoints, that it's kind of hard to find a middle ground when you both look at these, when you both agree with certain things and you want naturally to look at other people who agree with these things. You kind of adapt these mannerisms and the arguments that they make.
Okay.
And when all those arguments aren't really when the focus of the argument isn't really coming to an understanding of what you're talking about, it's more about being right. I think that's when these phrases like writer or subverted expectations or someone sucking D&D's dick, like these kind of hyperboles come into place. It's this kind of thing that isn't really, it kind of degrades the way that we're able to talk about common material that we probably share more opinions on than we differ on. And that's my like 3 mile tangential speech there.
Maybe the title is very clickbaity and that's not what you agree with. And I'm not recommending this for you. I'm recommending this for the people that will be interested.
See, but I don't think that's worth being recommended if it
Shawn,
doesn't
that is up to them to decide. That is up to them to decide.
I'm going to step in here. We're going to end the podcast. Let me summarize real quick. These types of videos with this type of title have certain tendencies in their construction. When we talk about dismissing viewpoints, it is a tendency to dismiss either the viewpoint that the show is crap and that the writers are stupid, or the viewpoint that they have done the best that they could based on the circumstances that were presented to them. But if you are to spend all of your time within one of these groups, like you have in a way...
Shut! You don't even know. No. Listen to me, Yeston. I do have videos specifically that do talk about the good parts of Game of Thrones. I have not just been spending my whole time in this.
I understand.
You cannot say that is the case.
I understand. But when this is what you are presenting, right, as an encapsulation of your thoughts, it inevitably engages this negative response. And this is I've talked about this before, just within the writing of the show, how these decisions engage negative responses regardless of whether they are justified or not, right? And so what I like about doing this podcast is that you have the opportunity to hear the viewpoints of someone who is sort of on one side and someone who is on the other side, right? But I think there is a definite tendency upon the negative side to be specifically and exaggeratedly negative, right? And that is the problem that is happening here. Regardless of whether you have absorbed the content of positive media upon the subject, this type of overly exaggerated negative response to the show, and what is a response that, even if the points are valid, is definitely clickbaity, which I think hurts it a little bit, is what is engaging this negative response to that. This has been the Game of Thrones podcast.
And it does not end there.
I want to add a small tangential point along.
You cannot summarize this if you have been falling asleep throughout this whole thing.
I have not.
Yeah.
I want to make a small tangential addition to this. I agree with what he says, and I would hate it just as much if, like, and I would expect you to hate it just as much if I had said, like, if I had recommended videos, something like why Game of Thrones is the best series on TV, and if you don't agree, you're a cunt or something like that.
I would not have dismissed it though, the way that you did, and that is my issue with this. Because even if you don't agree with it, you cannot cut me off and say that and just completely dismiss what I'm saying.
See, but if
that is the exact same attitude that you're critiquing.
No. You have to come to the table with a level of respect for the other opinion. Like if you were to promote a video like the Game of Thrones, like the hyperbole I just created in my head, the Game of Thrones is the best show ever. If you don't agree, you're like that. It's just completely dismissing the opposite opinion. I have no, if I dislike the show, I have no reason to listen to what that person has to say, because I can already tell from their title that in my mind, he's already dismissed my train of thought. And so why the hell should I give anything that he's given, that he's said, a listen to?
If anything, this has been part of the experience of this season, and I think that it has a place in this. Mm-hmm. So it has to be brought up in one way or another. So this is part of the show now, and it cannot be dismissed as simply as that.
But I believe 100% that part of the show, the part that exaggerates and points and makes mountains out of molehills, is toxic in the way that, in similar ways to the other fandoms have become toxic. Like how you saw a lot of people saying that Star Wars was ruined after like episode 9 or episode 10 or something like that, just because they didn't like the direction or the cinematic decisions or writing decisions that the writers made. And mind you, I still have criticisms of those shows, and I think that they're, like I said, everything, we're getting in a loop here, but I think that there is 100% room for critical and dissective discussion of Game of Thrones, but I think that there's 100% a way to do that, and 100 a way that you should do that is while considering every opinion and not dismissing the opinion of the opposite side.
I don't think we're really getting anywhere.
You know what I'd like to get at is that, you know, people always say you can tell a person's position by their body language, and man,
what?
Just like this has been a roller coaster of emotion. Your crossed arms, and then as Shawn is elaborating the point that the massaging of the under chin, and then you're over here with your arms out in the open, trying to engage people into your system of thought. It's just crazy. Anyway, I'm going to try again to end this podcast.
No, before you end that, there was something that we wanted, I think we wanted to talk, or at least we mentioned before the show even began. This is I guess, an ending thought, brain food. So the leak is, or supposed scuttlebutt and rumor is that Barristan Selmy's actor came out and said that he believes, or he thinks, or he knows that George R. R. Martin has finished the book series and is waiting for the show series to finish, to release them. So if this is true, and obviously we've heard all kinds of rumors as to the production and publication of these books throughout the decades that they've supposed to be out, what would that mean for the show? And this is kind of open-ended to end the podcast, I guess. Would that lessen, or would that enhance the experience of the books and or show? What do you guys think?
I think it could be like George sees what happens when a certain ending comes out, and then hopefully we get a different one, in my opinion.
But if it's already written, then everything's already written.
Presumably
he could rewrite it.
And from what you told us, he told D&D what was going to happen, or what they were going to do, or the arcs, or whatever, you know.
But like, if what he said and the books are actually finished, like,
sure, but we don't know at what point. We don't know how much he knew of D&D's plans after they discussed things. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider here, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the first podcast I've been on that's totally gone off the rails. It's been very enjoyable.
But I
You've been
think
asleep half the time yesterday.
I think
I was not asleep.
It's gone off the rails quite perfectly. It's gone.
Arturo doesn't think that.
I think it's stayed on at least one rail for at least most of the show.
Oh my god.
One rail. It's been lopping between two, but
all right, it has to end now.
all right. I would like to say that if George R. R. Martin, if that is what is the truth, and George R. R. Martin has finished the books and he's just waiting for the show to finish, I think that would be an incredibly unpopular move.
Would you be up for it or against it?
I mean, I'd still read the fucking books, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but do you support that move or not?
It's not something I would do. And I think he would deserve every bit of ire he would get for it. If that were the case, and like it was found out to be the case.
I don't think we'll ever know.
Not like that he releases the book like maybe 6 months after, and then 3 years later he releases the last book. But I think like if it were pretty obvious and people were to find out in some way that he had these books and were sitting on them, I think there'd be a bit of anger.
I've always just been afraid that he's not going to finish them because he's going to die. sorry,
Yeah.
but that isn't like a realistic concern.
It's morbid, and I know it's something that he's said that is pretty morbid to talk about and inappropriate, but it's. I will end my thought saying it would be very George R.R. Martin for him to die before the books are finished.
Okay.
And that would be the most meta thing about Game of Thrones.
All right, this podcast is done. Jesus.